yes, it is. Welcome in, Sports by the Book, South Point Studio. Happy to be with you as always. It is a Football Frenzy Friday, or I should say Football Frenzy on a Friday. That's what we went with last week. We'll do it yet again. Jimmy Vacarro is on my left. Chris Andrews and Vinny Magliulo are on my right. What are we at now? 144 years between the three of you guys, right?
Closer to 150.
Closer to 150 now?
Yeah. Let's see. I got here in 79. What's that? 45.
Yeah.
70.
Jimmy got here in 75.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 78.
Is that 49?
And
Okay.
78. So it's 46, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, that is actually, yeah. There you go. Right on what Vinny said.
Yeah.
What are you laughing about?
I'm not laughing about anything. They're laughing back. They're laughing back there. I don't know why Jerry's laughing, but Jerry's.
Do you think we're funny?
Well,
What was that TV?
First off, Jimmy, you are one of the most entertaining human beings I've ever met.
Well, would you expect I'd come and do this show and be bad?
No, that would never have crossed my mind. You know that.
We're joking, but you know what? At my old age, and I'm going to speak real quick on my two friends over here.
Please.
We'll talk a little bit about where the hell is this sports betting going? This is incredible. From what just happened in the last few days, like kicking off for a new season, it's right there. And you look back and you want to say to yourself, did you ever envision would be to this point? Well, we never envisioned would be in a studio that cost $900,000 to talk about sports betting. So I really, truly feel good when it comes this time of year because it's something that we have done. And let's call it like it is. Nurtured it for some degree. We were one of the first ones here. We can't take it away from Nikki and anybody else that did it, and Jay Corneghi, whatever, but we were first in line. And in my case, I was really lucky because here I am, by myself walking around this town. At least Chris and Vinny had some people to talk to. I was like, my hands in my pocket. But then it hit, and here we go. So let's get started because I got a lot to say.
We got a lot to cover, too.
Yes,
Many
we
games.
do.
Okay,
yes,
good.
we do. About 60 college games. We won't hit them all, but we'll hit a good chunk of them.
Yeah, we couldn't hit them all.
Yeah.
we don't have 24 hours. We have 2.
Hey, 24 hours.
And only 1 for college.
24 hours would be a long show.
This is our studio. We can.
What was the Jim Carrey movie?
The what movie?
Truman Show. He was on all the time. That'd be us.
Yeah, or Kramer finding the television set and just putting it on whenever he wanted to in Seinfeld as well. But yeah, I do want to start off because Jimmy mentioned it. Just now, everything's underway. Chris, Vinny, Jimmy, that was a hell of a football game last night. We ended up getting with the Chiefs winning and covering all numbers 27-20.
Yeah, it fell right on the total, unfortunately. So I had 47 on the ties win parlay card. So we got a lot of stuff live, because we ran at 2.5 for a long time because we took that big bet at +3. And at the time and not just at the time, we were the only 3 flat in the entire market anywhere. Then we went to 2.5 flat, and there may have been 1 or 2 other 2.5 flats, not many, but we were, pretty much the only one. So for all those months, we had that 2.5 flat sitting out there. So a lot of live stuff sitting on Kansas City, but I can't complain. We had a good night. We juiced them out pretty good last night, so everything was pretty good.
All 4 teaser combos hit, so the fuse has been lit. We oftentimes talk about Thursday night, what it means, right? That lights the fuse, and then come Monday, the explosion, which is part of the business. That's good.
Then I got the Tuesday morning meeting. That might be fun. So you never know.
It's to some degree we talk about it. The teasers, it's hard. It's a hard racket to beat if you're booking it, only because these teams are playing so close together, no matter who you have. And remembering my 2 colleagues here. I think maybe 20 years ago, you could bet these teasers minus a dime on the NFL teaser.
Yeah.
Now it's we're up to minus 60 or 70 on a teaser.
Oh, for a 6-point teaser, it's -1/4.
Yeah.
Or what about the
I'd have to look.
$1.40, which and there's 50s and 60s out there. So South Point still.
Our friend
again.
that we know, had a place offshore. I guess statute of limitations ran out. But I used to bet the 3-team 7-point teaser at +150, and you can't get that anymore. I mean, we did pretty good on. And what was nice is like if you had 3 with juice on the dog, you could still tease it up to plus 10.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty good.
But you know what? What's important about that, because for years, right, people criticized teasers for a long time, and it was like, they weren't a big deal. The fact of the matter is, when you look at the vig now, the juice on 6, 6.5, and 7-point teasers, what it is, that tells you how successful the bettors became with them and how proficient that they came, realizing what to do. So, to Jimmy's point, where it started, I mean, there was minus a dime. Now you're laying a $1.40 or $1.50 or more on 2-team teasers.
Well, the other thing, the nature of the game has changed quite a bit too. How many games come down to the fourth quarter?
So
almost all,
almost every one of them. I mean, that's why if you're a sharp teaser player, you could do really well.
Yeah.
And there's something else. We'll switch a little bit to some degree.
Sure.
You can bet all you want on college teasers. You can't win.
Don't tell everybody.
I mean, you just see things and you just shake your head.
You want to stay open.
Because of the college, whatever, you get to the halftime, it might be 17-0, but the final score might be 24-17. But as you said, the NFL is just insane because they all play. And then when they played it, just 3 men rushing and way back, and you got that favor, you say, what am I doing now? Because I'm going to get my ass kicked with 35 seconds to go. Yesterday was a prime example.
Yeah.
Prime example. And I always kid and I joke at the end of that game, which is like the guys that you associated with your entire life, they're giving you one of these up in the air. Why me? Why me? Why should this happen to me? But it's a two-way street. The NFL is no bargain, but we still book the teasers. And the college, like I've always said, you can bet what you want. Kid, let me give you advice. Don't bet the college teasers.
Just quit telling everybody that. But okay, no.
I will say that
they're not going to stop, Chris.
People won't stop. And that was also like the first football season living out here for me. That was the first piece of advice someone gave me.
Really?
Do not bet college teasers.
I mean, you could see a 6-point college teaser. We just talked about in the NFL, you lay a quarter. In college, even money.
Yeah.
One of those things, another one that a guy told me many years ago, a lot of times, price will tell you the winner.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it won't always tell you the winner, but it'll tell you where the right side is.
And part of the excitement that's here, obviously, here we kicked off yesterday's game. I mean, you're one catch away. That was that Jackie Smith's car in the end who caught the pass and it went right through his hands. And the next one, the kid was on this much? That changed millions of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
From what when
you said this much, it was more like this much.
Yeah, probably that much. So.
Not even.
So I keep telling people, I said, listen, if you're going to do this racket and you're going to be around, you got to learn to accept those. It's a two-way street and call it like it is. It's just at times it's a tough racket on both sides. Easier for us, but to keep up on everything that's going on. And then we have what you've seen last night, like an hour before game time, somebody comes waltzing in, bets $100,000 on the side.
Yeah.
And what you're seeing more of that, as I like to call them, event games, because the people that bet those games last night, they're going to probably come around 5 or 6 times a year to bet that kind of money. But we'll see. But
they were back
today was the 50,000 on the total.
50,000 on a total and 100 on which one did she bet?
Already.
She bet Green Bay. Yeah.
Wow. And to me, I thought when I saw the plus 2.5, my thing was betting $100,000. Maybe you should wait to try to grab a 3, but obviously that's why these people think different than what you would call other people who bet these big numbers.
Well, to your point, Jimmy, that's be in the house. So it's the person that won last night's game came back and fired again today. So got to create a new customer.
Yeah, I hope so. I talked to her a little bit. Nice lady.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, one other thing I want to bring up before we get into games here today, especially while Jimmy is here. I have a stack of a ton of these cards out here.
More, I have some for you too.
There's a few over there as well. But Chris, Vinny, Jimmy, this is always a very popular thing. Week 1, the jackpot card, $25,000 guaranteed, and I know we're through the $25,000.
I think we're over 30 at this point.
Yeah, I just checked it before
30,
I left. It's 30,000 right now.
Last couple of years, we've been about 35.
Yeah. This will be obviously, again. It's $5, which is enjoyable for the clientele that we have come in here, and it's not a bad way to blow $15 or $20 betting a couple of those things. And last year, I think the last year was 2,000 people 200 two people chopped it up. I think they went for $17,000 each. You know, whatever. So
it's a nice day at the office.
Not bad.
Does not include tonight's game, so you have a couple of more days to bet the entire Sunday and Monday card, and then. Chris, you added the Monday night total because tonight's game is being played, the Friday game.
Yeah,
So
the way we submitted it to gaming,
selections.
it has to be 15 selections. So I wasn't crazy about putting the total on, but I didn't feel like going to gaming and get everything changed. So I put the total on.
Just another way of obviously coming in, doing something that you could have some fun and it costs you a $5 bill. And again, I'm not trying. You don't have to come. I'm just telling you that there are certain things that people like to play. You know what? I put this out there, and I really never. I thought about it. What do you think a normal, local kind of guy that comes to the sports book here is not going to bet $100,000 on a game or whatever, but he's going to be here. He enjoys the whole thing. I've always said that people like that maybe, use $300 for the day of your betting.
Mm-hmm.
Your parlays, your this, your that. $300 for that's what I put people on who just want to come, know what they're doing, but they're not going to bet you, these big numbers.
You
and
know
you see more and more and more, but every year.
Do you know what our average ticket cost is?
No.
$100.
Wow.
That goes for the lady betting 10,000 or 100,000, and then the guy betting a $2 parlay card.
Yeah.
But it really.
That's good.
And of course, I'd probably say 95% of the guys listening to this show are serious handicappers and want to win. But some guys just want to spend the day and have entertainment, and it's probably more economical than going to the movies these days, and you got a chance to win some money.
Yeah.
And, you said betting 3 games. Okay, so you bet, 3 games for 100 each. You're probably going to go 2-1 or 1-2, and that's just the way it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you bet 6 games for $50, but it's a good entertainment value, and, you have a chance to win money. That's what this whole thing is built around.
I'll tell you what I get, walking around. I get a lot of those things, the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday when there's really not much going on, but someone will see me standing there talking to you, or you are coming over and do this and say, "Hey, Jimmy, can I ask you this question?" Hey, and these are people who are like, they're not going to bet you a lot of money, but they're going to bet you the $300 probably for the week. And they feel comfortable having things explained to them.
Sure.
I think we're one of the better places that don't tell a guy, we ain't got time to talk to you. And I'll tell you, I don't know, but I know it resonates to a point where these people are coming back.
It does.
It's a two-way street of people coming back. Now, we know, because we talked about it last night, when the guy won the $100,000, we said, he's coming back. There's no way, because first of all, it's just like there's no...
First of all, they got to cash.
No big deal. He came and he cashed it, but, so you just understand now, and you just can't say no to the guy if he wins the first bet to get lost. It's a two-way street there, but you could just see it coming. And me and Chris were joking. I said, well, we know he's coming back tomorrow. Bang. He showed up a couple hours ago, right?
Well, I talked to him. I said, listen, don't come up 5 minutes to post.
Right.
Just give me a little time to book the games, and, I'll do my best to take care of you.
You do a great job with your best, kid.
By the way, I had a guy you were talking about coming back. A guy came in today. Hadn't seen him since 1981.
Wow.
He came in, and he, a young guy, about my age. No, he told me, he says, listen, I used to be I saw him since 81, but he was a customer of mine at Calneva, 1981. He's followed me for years, and, here he is in Las Vegas now, just here for a weekend trip and wanted to come in and say hello. That's kind of nice.
That's awesome.
It's nice.
Yeah, it really is.
Anyway, we should get going here. We got a lot of games to get to, man.
We're going to take a quick break.
Okay.
We'll get into the college games.
And I'm going.
Jimmy, thank you as always.
You're taking off?
Always
Okay.
a pleasure.
Where you going?
And we will have college football to go through when we get back here on Sports by the Book Football Frenzy.
South Point is also proud to provide a variety of relaxing amenities for the guests who want to be pampered. Soak up the sun and let your stress melt away in our lagoon-style paradise swimming pool. A relaxing getaway where you can bask in the desert sun and enjoy seasonal food and bar service poolside. And if you really want to escape, come to Spa Costa del Sur. From couple suites to a co-ed wet area, our spa caters to business and leisure travelers who want to unwind and elevate their senses. A visit to one of our spa's steam, sauna, or whirlpool treatment rooms will leave any guest feeling like they can take on the world. Our gaming amenities include over 60 table games and over 2,600 of the most popular slot and video poker machines. We have penny slots, including the popular Buffalo games, and real machines like Wheel of Fortune, Triple Sevens, and Megabucks. If you prefer video poker, try Deuces Wild, Double Double Bonus, or a variety of multi-denomination games. Or try your hand at one of the most popular casino table games in the world, Blackjack. Don't let the game intimidate you. Blackjack, also known as 21, is both easy and fun. And our dealers are always happy to assist. And the best part? Blackjack always pays 3 to 2. Next, check out the roulette tables. Roulette is one of the easiest casino games to learn, and so much fun to play. It's a favorite of both beginners and seasoned players. In addition to blackjack and roulette, our casino pit features over 60 popular table games like Baccarat, Pai-Gow Poker, 3-Card Poker, Ultimate Texas Hold'em, and Mississippi Stud. So get out of your room and come join in the fun.
Welcome back in. Sports by the Book Football Frenzies, the show. Jeff Parles, Chris Andrews, Vinny Magliulo. Big thanks to Jimmy, as always, for coming on in at the top of the show. One of the most entertaining, I meant it.
America's treasure.
America's treasure, one of the most entertaining people I've ever met in every way, shape, and form. Chris, let's go into college football. Okay. First hour of this show moving forward, we're on for 2 hours. We're on until 4. First hour will be college football. Second hour will be NFL. Yeah. Chris, before we get into the games, I just want to give you the time to bring up you guys put these numbers up on Monday.
Yeah.
You do it a little bit different than the market usually
I do. A lot of guys open on Sunday night, and, I got enough trouble running South Point. I don't want to run anybody else's business. But, they take smaller limits and then move accordingly, which is not a bad way to go. I instead open up Monday morning, and I like to have different numbers than obviously not every game, but a lot of games. And I'm not really trying to handicap winners in that sense. I'm trying to handicap where I think the number's going to go. And obviously I'm wrong, probably 50% of the time. But anyway, that's why I want to encourage you guys to come in. And believe me, we have a good clientele that comes in on Monday mornings. But I just want to let everybody know whether you have whether you're on the app, which of course we take a lot more at the window here. But we have some different numbers, and if you're looking, maybe some you may agree with and some you may disagree with, and that's how gambling works. But that's the way we do things. I just wanted to throw that out there. We do open Monday morning, but we don't open the vanilla numbers that everybody else in the world has.
And it's the same time too, right, Chris? It's what you want to be consistent with.
Well, and we don't change limits either.
And you don't change limits.
When we open them up, we open them up.
They're up for the week. So
10,000 at the counter on college, and it doesn't matter if it's Texas and Michigan or Georgia Southern and Nevada. We take 10,000 and fire away.
Let's go into tonight, shall we?
Okay.
4:00 Pacific start time for the BYU Cougars and the SMU Mustangs. Non-con action here. Big 12 versus ACC, as the creators of college football drew up for these two teams.
Exactly.
So, Chris, you opened, speaking of numbers, it's open 10.5.
Yeah.
Up to 12 on SMU now on this one. And also the total's been an interesting one. 55 up to 57. You guys are market high right now on that total as well.
I'll tell you, man, the total business this year, well, every year. I mean, especially this week, the total business just goes crazy because people think they have an edge, and quite honest with you, a lot of them do. So we see a lot of total action, and we move quick. When I see one of the wise guys bet us on totals, we move it quick. Anyway, I did kind of like SMU in this game. I tried to stay ahead of it. We're up to 12. We're really about even on the game. Mm-hmm. And, I think when I opened at 10.5, I think it was mostly 10 in the market. And once again, I'm not trying to tell you the winner of the game, but I thought the number was going to go up. Anybody that followed us talking about the preseason games of the year, I did not like BYU. I did like SMU, and that was reflected here in this first game. Although we're going to go in there, I might need BYU by the time they kick off.
I mean, not a real surprise either, I don't think, with the support for SMU here. Right, this is their third game, so they've had a couple of games under their belt already. So I think that bodes well for them. And BYU, I think, was a surprise last week. But to Chris's point about the totals, too, when you see totals, especially early in the week on Monday when they go up, those are pros, professional bettors betting on the totals. The public will tend to, more casual fans will tend to bet the totals day of.
Right.
And so, and let's face it, folks love to bet. They love to root for points. That's another reason why this total's going up.
Actually, a very rare early week total by me. I actually took it over 55 on the open.
Yeah, good. Got a good number. You laid a good number.
I don't like this BYU team at all.
I don't either.
And I really don't like their defense. And SMU really was lucky to get out of Reno with a win week one.
Yeah.
I just wonder if, I know last week they played Houston Christian, all right, whatever, FCS team rollover. Just wonder if that offense really starts to look like the offense we anticipated going into this year in this game after really sleepwalking the whole way in that win against Nevada.
Yeah, maybe Nevada's better than we thought.
With their win last week, I think so.
I really had them close to the ball, and I'm a Wolfpack fan. I've spent so many years in Reno. I root for that team, but I had them close to the absolute bottom of the barrel. But just looking at the way they performed, I had to readjust, and of course, there's a lot of readjustments being made these first couple of weeks. So maybe SMU, they probably did sleepwalk. They probably thought they had an easy win on their hands. But also maybe Nevada's a little better than we thought.
Actually, a question from the chat real quick, and I want to give you guys a chance to answer this. Minidar, who, of course, we see you a lot in the punchies for Frank Nicotero on Punchlines. He's asking, are bettors limited on the app or at the kiosk compared to just coming up to the window?
Yeah, I mean, on the app for sure. This is the way we do it here at South Point. And the kiosk has reasons for there being, there's because the kiosk is the kiosk, and that goes at 3:00 in the morning, when maybe we're not quite on top of things the way we should be. But there's also some cash things that you have to be very cognizant of on our part when guys are betting at the kiosk. And those are, a lot of federal regulations that we have to make sure that we adhere to.
Moving along to the second game tonight, a little lower scoring game expected.
Contrast.
You think?
Yeah, expected in Evanston tonight. Duke, really nothing to write home about in their win against Elon last week. Northwestern won yet another close game. They beat Miami of Ohio. They hold on, beat the Red Hawks, and now Chris and Vinny. The market has bet Duke behind us in this game, down to 1.5 on the Purple Cats in Northwestern, and that total opened 39 down to 37.5. Actually, was as low as 36, so it has come up the ladder a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, I kind of like Duke in this game. I thought, I'm not sure who Northwestern is to be favored, but Duke lost a lot from last year, including a really good coach. New coach. I think we gotta. See how that goes. But by the way, a good friend of mine, QC, the quant coach, his wife, and he might be listening, his darling wife, she went to Northwestern, and he's dying to go to a game in this new stadium. But I told him, QC, try to go now. I think in November, it might not be quite so nice.
Yeah, you gotta go in September if you're going red on the lake.
Might not be a pleasant trip in November.
Lower scoring figures to be a lower scoring game than the first one we talked about. I love that it's a couple of contrasting games tonight, coupled with or paired up with an NFL game too. So we have a nice betting menu, and this is going to be part of it. So that's and this is the this constitutes the nightcap for football tonight. So this will be fun for as far as folks adding to their multi-leg. And this game here, if this game was tomorrow, wouldn't do near the handle that it's going to do tonight.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, would have been lost in the day.
No doubt. Great spot for it.
I don't like either of these teams. I think they're both 4-8, 5-7 quality. This total's so low that the funny part is I still think the under's probably good, even at 37.
You know what, though, Jeff? I still like this kind of football. We just don't get to see it very often.
No, I know. Right? Well, and also
it's a good point.
That lakefront stadium also is it's intriguing. It's intriguing.
I'm going to be switching back and forth.
It'll be a good setup tonight for these games going on. Of course, we have the Brazil NFL game to preview in the second hour of the show. Here's actually a game coming up next, 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. I actually gave this out as a play on Punchlines earlier in the day. Georgia Tech travels north to take on Syracuse. All of a sudden, a reasonably big ACC tilt with Georgia Tech off to a good start. Syracuse wins their opener against Ohio, all number dependent on if they covered or not. We talked about this game last week.
Right, yeah.
With a landed 16.
16. We were up as high as 18.
Yeah, all number dependent on when you got it, on which side. You could have won both, in all honesty. Yellow Jackets a 3 in this game. You open 3.5, as low as 2.5. 61 is the total. I bet the Cuse with the points in this game. I just wonder now, with the way that Florida State has looked, how much do we have to devalue that win in Ireland for Georgia Tech, where Florida State's coming around flipping out after that and losing by 2 scores at home to Boston College. I think this is a good spot for Syracuse at home. That's why I took the points with the orange in this one.
I got no real opinion. I thought 3.5 was a good number myself. So anyway.
I think Georgia Tech is actually better than we thought. I mean,
that's also in play here.
I mean, certainly Florida State is not what we thought. And with the expanded playoff format, let's remember they're still not eliminated. I mean, they're
it's pretty close now.
But mathematically,
they're still in it.
But which is good, I think, overall for the playoff. But Georgia Tech is better. I mean, again, this is a case where they're going back on the road. They traveled over to Ireland, and this is their 3rd game. So the 3.5 doesn't surprise me. The hook, I'm not surprised that they took the hook in this one.
Moving along on Saturday, I do want to bring this game up because Tulane and K-State played a great one a year ago in Manhattan. That Tulane actually won against the Wildcats. And the dog has been bedding this game, Chris. You opened 10.5, now down to 9. Total's down 2 points from 49 to 47. There's even a lot of 8.5 in the market right now. So the bettors are all over the green wave in this one against a potential Big 12 representative in the college football playoff.
I think Tulane lost a lot from last year.
They sure did.
I downgraded them quite a bit. And I'm very high on K-State. I think they're going to be a really good team this year. Probably the 2nd best team, I think, in the Big 12 next to Utah. But, of course, we got a long way to go yet. But, I thought the opener was okay. And I'm going to go in needing the favorite, it looks like. And you know what, Jeff? I'm okay with that.
There'll be K-State money, but
I imagine this will come back up a little bit.
I mean, again, your line movement. What's the function, right? To try to find that threshold where you can get some buyback, and I think that by the time this game kicks off tomorrow morning, we're open all night too, right? So you've got
3-shift town, Vinny.
That's right.
I've heard that before.
That's right. 3-shift town and a lot of local business as well.
3-shift sports book too.
Yeah.
So,
24 hours.
I want to touch on this game, Chris, because, by the way, our good friend Chris Andrews last week went 4-1 in the 5 plays he gave out here on the show. So pressure's on, my friend, to do it again in week 2. And this game is one that you actually do like here, and that's Troy. He was coming off getting upset at home against Nevada, and now they go on the road to take on Memphis, a team that has dreams of a college football playoff berth for that non-Power 4 bid. 19.5 right now behind us, total 57.5.
Oh, I think they have a very legit chance of making that. I mean, a lot of guys on Boise, and we'll talk about them a little bit later. I think Fresno's kind of live, and there's probably some others. But I think Memphis is good, but they do not have a defense. I think that back door going to be wide open, and the money is showed on Memphis. I thought 17, which I think is where I opened it, was a pretty good number. Even at the 17, I sort of favored the dog. Now we're up to 19.5. If you're out there betting, you might want to be patient. I haven't seen any dog money show up yet, but I think you might get to 20. And like I said, I think that back door is going to be wide open.
I agree with Chris. I think if you're looking for the dog, you're going to have an opportunity to get some more points there.
No real position for me on this game with Troy. And Memphis. Boise State is a really difficult game this week that we'll get to later. Memphis with that Florida State game not looking quite as tough next week. Yeah. It is a look-ahead spot as well.
Could be.
So
yeah.
There are a lot of angles.
I think Memphis is very good.
Great offense.
I really do.
Great offense.
Terrific offense, terrific quarterback.
Yeah. Score points.
But, boy, you got to play you got to play both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, if Florida State doesn't score on them, then we know Florida State's really done so here for the year. Pitt and Cincinnati's up next. Two teams with really no expectations going into this year. Chris, you open pick now. Cincinnati 2.5 at home. Total's gone up from 59 to 62.5. Both teams won big against inferior opponents a week ago.
They're both terrible. I tell you.
Gave up some points too. That's why the
Pitt
total's
did,
going
yeah.
up.
I talked with Alex this morning. I did a couple minutes on her show. She did real well last week. I told her the one guy's strategy that bet me for many years, betting a lot of small dogs, putting them in round robins on the money line. And his philosophy was, at the end of the year, we're going to look back and say, why was this one team favored? I don't particularly like this game either way. But I think that might be a game that you might want to throw in one of those round robins. You bet Pitt, you're getting, what can you get, plus 110, maybe plus 115 somewhere.
15, yeah.
You know, and you look back in November, you might say, how the hell is Cincinnati favored over this team? That game could go either. I had no problem with the pick 'em in this game. But if you're playing that strategy, this would be a game that would be eligible for that.
If you like Pitt, it's the money line.
I agree.
I mean,
100%.
I mean, if you're looking at a team in the field goal range, then as a dog, then you feel pretty comfortable that, or you believe that team could win the game outright. So to Chris's point, taking a plus on it, but this is also a play on the home team here. That's why that's what I see so far.
Just throwing this out there, I don't have a play in this game, but I can't stand either of these head coaches.
You don't have to bet them.
We've complained about Narduzzi for years on the Pitt side, and Satterfield is a guy who, again, all you need to know about a coach is when the team he leaves, fan base is thrilled that he's gone. And that's what happened when he went Louisville and left Louisville for Cincinnati. And Louisville had a huge upgrade in Jeff Parles, as we've seen already down there in Louisville. So no play for me in this game. I'm with what Chris said to open this game was right. I think both of these teams stink. I'm with you on that, Mr.
Pay
Andrews.
attention to coaching. You're right,
yes,
Jeff.
100%.
Pay attention to coaching.
All right, now for something a little bit different, Chris. How about Army and FAU? But this is one of 5 games you and I talked about when we were getting the show ready this morning of a lot of action on games you just wouldn't anticipate. This is one of them. The Owls of FAU, by the way, home at Boca here for this one, 3-point favorites against Army with a total of 42.5.
Well, it's one of those, like I said, I mean, I don't think we really put up a bad number or anything like that. It wasn't anything like that. What is it now, Jeff? 3? We opened at 2. I mean, it's not that much movement, particularly for a college game, but tons of action on this game. And my good friend over here, Vinny Magliulo, like he likes to say, two-way action. We got a lot of two-way action on this game of all games. Sure. I got a few of them on that list, but this is one of them. I don't know how intriguing it is, but boy, there's a lot of players out there with a lot of opinions and a lot of money, and boy, we sure love that.
Vinny, the other games that Chris brought up to me this morning that would not normally move the meter, but here they are. Mm-hmm. Eastern Michigan, Washington.
Yep.
Great two-way action, as you said. Yeah. Sam Houston against Central Florida. Sure, why not? How about Monroe and UAB? Another one.
Premier
Throw out the record books when those two teams play, and then a conference game, because of course it is Liberty and New Mexico State is the last one.
That is a conference game.
It is CUSA. That was the CUSA championship game last year.
Yeah.
It'll surprise you, and it's not always just professionals, but typically in these in games like this there are but there's obviously respected opinions on both sides with the amount of action that we've seen on it on both sides. Oftentimes it's not just the big name schools that are going to drive. Sometimes these games that we're talking about here, like this one here, Army and Florida Atlantic, they'll outhandle some of the SEC teams that are playing this week, or the Big Ten, some of the Power 4 school games, because they're so early on too. They're lopsided, but hey, that's part of it, and that's also really one of the byproducts, and I think the benefits of this expanded betting menu. I mean, this is a game that we wouldn't have seen. Army we would book years ago, but all of these schools here. So it took a while also for us to get a handle on a lot of these games. But the fact of the matter is, this is why college football handle has also grown exponentially.
Yes, it has.
The expanded betting menu, every game that we can find on TV, just about every school is booked now on the college betting board. and you've got the added and extra games that Chris puts up tomorrow, and that's what's and now the expanded playoff and the ramifications that a lot of teams are not eliminated. A year ago there were teams eliminated after the first week.
Sure.
Yeah.
But that also adds to the intrigue and adds to the interest, and it adds to the incentive for these teams that are playing. If the teams have incentive to play, that's good for business.
100%.
Vinny, like you said, even Florida State isn't eliminated.
That's
really
true. Like mathematically, they're not. When you look at how the format is.
Win out, get some help. Yeah.
Look,
crazier stuff has happened.
I mean, listen, I don't like their chances. But
I don't either. I'm not saying that they're going to make the play, but let's face it. In years past, it was always, so-and-so has no losses, but this team has, it's an SEC team that has one loss or two losses. We've seen two-loss teams get into the playoff.
Sure,
and it was
an
uproar. Forget it. That might be
might be half the field
standard.
Moving along, let's go to the game that everyone had circled since we knew it was happening. Texas on the road at Michigan. Chris, I just want to ask you real quick on this game because, of course, you had this in the games of the year pile. And we see Texas just obliterate Colorado State last week. Michigan against the Fresno team that I know you think is pretty reasonable and out of the Mountain West. Unimpressive.
I think I gave them out last week. Yeah, on my side.
They were one of them. Unimpressive, but they still won the game by 3 scores. Michigan did, and this is a totally different number from the games of the year. 6.5 at your open, as high as 7.5. Now back to Texas. In the big house, a touchdown favorite against Michigan.
Well, I don't know. I don't think I gave you this game as one of my sides. I don't think so. But that was borderline.
It is on the list.
It is on. Okay, well, good, because I like them.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you why. And I talked to some guys that I respect and think that this Michigan coach, and I forget his name.
Sharon Moore.
Is overmatched. Maybe. But we got two sides of the football. And his defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale, guy spent a lot of years in the NFL. He's not overmatched. And, Sarkisian, who he kind of reminds me of? Lamar Jackson. Can do a lot of great, great things, but sometimes falters in some big spots. And I think right now, I think Sarkisian has become a better coach over the last couple of years, but it also wouldn't surprise me if he didn't do well here against a defensive master in Wink Martindale. It's still the big house. There's going to be 100,000 fans. It's still Michigan. And I think it's going to be a really tough game for Texas. And some of our friends, the guys who've been on this show, who have told me they think Texas is absolutely the right side. I have to disagree. I think this game's going to go to the wire. And I like the dog. I think we should give me 7, but there's plenty of 7.5 out in the market. But I'll take Michigan plus 7 in this game. I like it.
6.5 up to 7. They laid to 7 earlier in the week, right? I think there was some 7.5s, and then back to 7. So this is a game that I think you're going to see pretty respected opinions on both sides. And look, points. Getting a touchdown in the big house is pretty hard to pass up, I think. And I'm not saying who to bet, but it'd be tough to lay this price.
That's my whole rationale on why I when the 7.5s are out, I took Michigan. Of just maybe it ends up being like what you said earlier about those teams that why was Cincinnati favored against, but like maybe that this ends up being like, whoa, Texas should have been 17 in this game. Like maybe we never know. Michigan could fall off a cliff this year.
Yeah, I think Texas is really good.
They're a bona fide top 5 team.
I think I got them
4.
They might be. I may have passed them on my power ratings. They may have passed Oregon. So I'm not putting down Texas as a team, but in this spot, I think this is going to be a very close game.
I just want to bring this up. I know this may sound a little bit weird to some, but Texas has been in high humidity, high temperature all summer long. It's going to be 55 degrees with 14-mile-an-hour winds in Ann Arbor. Now, that's not cold per se, but when you've been in 100 with 90% humidity the whole summer, 55 with wind might sound cold.
I understand what you're saying, but I think it would be a lot more difficult in reverse.
I
think it would be more difficult for Michigan to leave that to go to the heat and the humidity.
If this game was in Austin, I would have made the same point, but the opposite way. But I do agree with you that if this game was in Austin, Michigan would probably have a worse time with the humidity than Texas will do. But hey, look, This is Texas made the playoff last year. The Texas's back stuff is legitimate, but this kind of feels like another step for Texas solidifying the strength of this program going on the road and potentially even winning this game and covering. Yeah. But I'm with you, Chris. That's a lot of points to be getting at home with Michigan. Arkansas goes on the road to Oklahoma State. Was this Oklahoma State was never in the Southwest Conference. They were just Big 8, right?
Yeah, they weren't in the Southwest.
Yeah, they weren't in the Southwest.
Oklahoma was.
But Oklahoma State here, this is an interesting one to me because Arkansas won by $1 billion last week against a totally overmatched team. Oklahoma State really handled their business well against the best FCS team in South Dakota.
I was very impressed with that one. I really was.
Yeah.
And
so it's 8.5 to 10 on this game on the pokes at home there, Chris.
I almost gave out this one, but the number's getting up there too high. I made it 12. My number came to 12. Again, this Oak State team is pretty good, and I don't think much of this Arkansas team, although I think Paul Stone thought that they were going to be better than what I did. And I have, God knows, I have a lot of respect for Paul. Does a lot of work on college football. But I think that this one, I think the bettors have it right. This game went from 8.5 to 10, kind of like the favorite in this spot.
Both, I think it's important to Chris's reference to those games of the year, which is a very early exercise in your power ratings. You're really putting them on the line against professionals, and you're welcome in that exercise because it really forces you to evaluate very quickly what you made them initially. And in this case, both of these teams, I've already adjusted both of these teams' power ratings up, and you have to. You've got to pay attention to the way those games of the year were bet, even though this wasn't a game of the year, but how did they bet on or against these teams in those games? And I think, both of them were definitely shorter in our initial power rating. So both of them have come up here. Will we see? Where's the threshold for Arkansas money here? I guess we'll have to go through 10 to find out at this point.
I also have Oak State as one of my strongest home field advantages.
Okay,
good point.
Interesting. Great. Yeah, look, last year we talked about them a lot because they overperformed and made the Big 12 championship game. This team is better than the team a year ago. My concern with them going into the year was just regression because of how lucky they were a year ago with winning close
games. And they
games.
started poorly last year. Remember that?
Well, they got crushed by South Alabama early in the year.
Oh, yeah, man. I forgot about that.
Yeah, you got run out of the building and then turned it around on the back end.
Yeah.
I just want to quickly touch on this game because this game has gone through two key numbers, Auburn and California, from 14 down to 12. This is just going to be one of those interesting things, Chris, just at least for me, monitoring Auburn because the SEC is so strong, as it always is. Auburn was one of these teams. I had no idea what the heck to expect going into this year. I can't take anything from blasting an FCS opponent. Right. I want to see them against an average Power 4 team, but a Power 4 team at that in Cal.
I think I don't like this game that much. I just think too many question marks for both teams.
Yeah. Just
the fact that they are an SEC team. But I thought the number 14 was a good opener. But I don't know. I don't know what to think of either one of them really. So this would be a stay away game for me.
I'm not saying that these teams are certainly going to be in the playoff discussion, but I love the fact that these games are taking place.
It's excellent.
And early in the season. So you've got power conference schools playing each other now, and I think that's also a byproduct of the expanded playoff format.
And hopefully we'll see more and more of these type of games, even if they're not the most attractive matchups. This is better than Auburn blasting. I was going to say South Alabama, but I don't think the Jaguars are that bad. So you get what I'm saying out there, folks. All right, let's go to a Big 12 game that's not a conference game, guys. How about that? We're going to have a few of these this year.
Two of them, yeah.
Yep, the one next week is actually a gigantic game. But this one, we saw this matchup in Waco a year ago, Baylor and Utah. That was a number-dependent sweat a year ago in a game Utah won by a touchdown with a backup quarterback. Utes are 14.5 in Salt Lake this week against Baylor. Chris, market currently as high as 15. Total is 55 on this game.
Kind of like the favorite here a little bit. I just think Utah just has a lot more going for them right now. Baylor's been kind of up and down over the last maybe 2 decades. Some really good teams out of Baylor. RG3 was there. They were
won the Big 12 3 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, there's been some really good teams out of Baylor. I think this is one of the bad Baylor teams, though. And, laying points in a game that's theoretically not a conference game, even though they're in the same conference, might be a little dangerous. But I kind of think Utah's the right side here.
You know what? This game here, if it gets to 14, I think that's when we'll see.
Yeah.
Certainly Utah. But I think at the end of the day that we're gonna wind up needing Baylor in this game. Overall.
You're probably right, Vinny.
Yeah. That checks out. And I will just say this: I don't want to take anything from because only one FCS team beat an FBS team in week 1 and week 0. Only one, and that was Montana State's comeback against New Mexico.
Yeah.
That was the only FCS over FBS. At all.
And they were double-digit
And they were double-digit, exactly.
Right.
And they needed a 17-point comeback to win the game. But I don't want to take anything from last week for either of these teams. The only note I will make on Utah is that Cam Rising looks 100% healthy.
Oh, boy, yeah.
And if that is the case, then look out. Because then that team is probably the best team in the Big 12. They were the betting favorite here behind us. Mm-hmm. But that's the only thing I'm willing to take from either of these teams' beatdowns and FCS opponents.
Well coached. Seems like some pretty tough kids over there.
Always, yeah.
It seems like they always had like tough kids.
Good home field.
Yeah, nice home field. Yeah, where do I have them as a home field? Yeah, that's another one. Got them 5 points as a home field advantage, which is as high as I go. But I think this is a strong team. I like Utah in this game. I didn't put them on my list, but they were borderline.
Let's go to an SEC matchup. Kentucky hosts South Carolina. The Kentucky won a lightning shortened game against Southern Miss. South Carolina had to get a stop on the final drive to beat Old Dominion. Very inauspicious start for the Gamecocks, even though they won, Chris. From 10-9 on this game. Total's been hit more, 45 to 42.5.
I made the game 10.
So I think it's right.
I don't have much of an opinion here.
I'm a little surprised this total came down. And I think there's some rain in the area this evening. But I don't know. I mean, I think, again, as we get closer to kickoff tomorrow, I think there'll be support for Kentucky in this one. So initial money come in on the dog, 10 and 9.5. But I think there'll be plenty of Kentucky money tomorrow.
Let's go to the Cyhawk. Iowa State at Iowa. Iowa won last year and actually scored in the 20s against Iowa State last year, which pretty miraculous.
They scored last week.
Yeah, well, hey, they hit their season allotment of points in the second half in that win, putting up 40 in total against Illinois State. This has been, Vinny, I'm going to use one of your words. This has been a toggler.
Yes.
Chris, you open this 3 to 3.5 to 3 to 2.5 to 3 to 3.5 to 3. And now we're back to 2.5 on this game with Iowa laying it at home there in Iowa City with a total of 35.5.
Now, I gave you some games that I couldn't understand why we did so much business. This game, I understand why we were doing so much business. These are two pretty good programs. They're not elite, but they're like maybe one step below that. And this is a great matchup, a great rivalry. I go on with a friend who's been on our show a couple of times, Trent Condon out of Des Moines. And I hope Trent's listening. But I've gone on a few times on his show, and these fans are very rabid both ways. And I've been to Ames, and I kind of like that town. I think it's kind of a cool town. You been there?
I've not.
Yeah, it's kind of.
I've never, even though I lived 8 years in Missouri, I never went to Iowa.
Yeah, really?
Never was in the state.
Well, I don't know. Surprisingly, I found a great pizza place in Ames.
As we expected.
That was, of course, the pizza capital of North America. But anyway, I think this is a great game. 3 looks like the number.
Yeah.
Iowa, I went on the air earlier this year saying they're the toughest team for me to handicap because they win a lot of games. They just don't win by much. This is like a perfect game for Iowa. Would you be surprised if they won 17-14? I don't think anybody in the country would be. So, anyway, tough game. Good to watch, though.
This is Ames, mister. The Hustler. Great movie. Paul Newman.
Good one, yeah.
Right?
Good one, yeah.
That's right.
I bet the Hawkeyes. I laid the 2.5 when it was.
You laid the 2.5?
I did.
You laid
I do know I'm leaving myself open to a 16-14 final.
Points at a premium in this one, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, this would be one of those.
The total speaks to it, and the number too.
Yeah,
I would favor that side just because they win a lot of games at home and they
have the home field.
You're laying 2.5 at
I want to couple a few SEC teams together in games that have huge lines here, Chris and Vinny.
Mm-hmm.
Ole Miss is 42.5 against Middle Tennessee State. Alabama is 31 against South Florida. And Missouri is 34 against Buffalo. I'm not saying that I have opinions on any of these games, but again, you can't take too much from week one, but all these teams look the part in week one of being in that playoff conversation, as we expect them all to at least be live for that as we go through the season.
If you look at my highest scoring teams of the week, these might be the three favorites right here. I know Missouri is Mississippi is definitely the favorite. But I think these are all legitimate numbers. The only thing holding you back, Jeff, is the time clock.
Yeah.
You have enough time to win by 42? I'm not sure because they may take their foot off the gas, but I think that I got to tell you, I'd have a tough time betting any of these dogs. I really would. I think these numbers are legit.
So you mentioned the which college team will score the most points on Saturday for FBS versus FBS games. Ole Miss is 5-1. Alabama is 8-1. Missouri is 12-1. The only other team shorter than Missouri, based off my eyes, is Ohio State at 10-1. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, you got 100 teams you're going against, so it's hard to win with. And usually I'm rooting for those favorites because everybody's taking a stab at something that's 30, 40, 50-1, which is, in all honesty, probably the way to go.
Well, these three teams, here's the thing about these kind of games too, right? Is even, let's say, these big favorites, they get out to a commanding lead. Well, their second and third units are very good also, and guys trying to make names for themselves as well. So it's not like there's any let up either with what they're going to do. So that's why it's difficult to. I'm not suggesting go out and lay the prices because they're enormous, but then a lot of folks too, respected opinion, they'll look at the first halves in a lot of these games.
Yeah.
With these big favorites too.
That may be the way to go.
And if you're looking for the favorites, that's where you want to shop. But remember, and Chris puts up a first half on every game and a second half on every game as well. So it's not just limited to the game itself.
Well, Vinny, I think that's a really good point.
Yes.
And, part of this show is we're trying to educate bettors.
Yeah.
And you're right about the second teamers being better, or third teamers even being better than the first teamers in a lot of these squads. But coaching, they may take their foot off the gas. But if you like the favorite, and I kind of like all three of those favorites,
first half.
You might want to bet first half because they're not going to take their foot off the gas in the first half, and they're not going to substitute that freely in the first half. Right. So the first half may be the way to go, Vinny. So thanks for pointing that out. That's good.
Sure.
Going to an ACC game that I don't think this one's a conference game either. I think this is one of those same things with the Big 12. Wake won against Virginia, 54-55.5. I don't think either of these teams are particularly good, Chris. And the market has taken Virginia here, just moving this down from 2-1.
That might be another one of those games where you look at the end of the year and say, why was Wake favored in this game? So again, you take, I don't know, you probably find a plus 05. You might be able to find a dime somewhere. And, if your strategy is like that one guy, and he usually only bet me like the first couple weeks. And then after that, he figured the numbers kind of took care of themselves. We had the right favorites. But this would be one it'd be easy at the end of the year to look at Virginia and say, well, why were they a dog at Wake Forest? So, it might be not so much handicapping the game, but handicapping the situation. You might want to put them in.
Money line, if you're money line's probably the way you're looking at the dog.
Here's an interesting game. Kansas goes to Champaign to take on Illinois. We saw this game a year ago in Lawrence. Kansas won and covered. It was a tight game into the fourth quarter. Chris, you opened 6. The action's been on the Illini here from 6-5, and the total from 55 to 57.5.
It's funny. Illinois was my biggest disappointing team last year. I really thought that Bielema was going to make some strides. And was it year 2 or 3 for him? Whatever it was.
This is year 3.
This is year 3. Yeah. So last year I thought he was going to make some serious strides. He did not. Lance Leipold, I think, and we skipped over it. He was a coach at Buffalo.
Sure was.
Playing your outfit, Missouri.
Yeah.
And when he was there, they were a bowl team. A minor bowl, of course, but they were a bowl team. Now he gets hired by Kansas. he is a terrific, terrific coach. Listen, I made this number 6. It's not really a game I would be looking to bet, but I think it's going to be a really good game to watch, and I think a game where we can maybe glean a little something out of both these teams, how they perform here. As much as disappointment Illinois was last year, Kansas was. I expected good things, but not as good as they were. Kansas was a legit good team, and I kind of hope Leipold stays at Kansas. I'd love to see them become a real legitimate national championship contender.
Kansas on the uptick.
Yep.
These two schools are very familiar with each other, not only in football but in basketball as well.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, I think the handicap and angle here maybe be the revenge factor from last year too, which is no real surprise where they're betting a home dog.
One Mountain West game I want to at least bring up real quick because Chris aggressive on the underdog. The bettors have been on San Jose State and Air Force.
Yeah,
6.5 all the way down to 4 in this game on this one.
This is one of those games where bet, but I'm not sure why. Like I said,
I'm with you.
Well, some of these games, like I said, you might have a bad number and they run on you. That the games I pointed out were not like that. But this one, there's something going on here because this game, and I know Air Force doesn't really release injuries and that sort of thing, but somebody might have some inside information because I thought this number really should have been a lot higher, but I saw the flood of money coming in on San Jose. And certainly at this point in the season, you have to greatly respect that. So if you're betting the game, I don't know if you could find a good number on San Jose. Probably not. It got taken out by the market. But I'd be if you're an Air Force bettor, I'd be extremely careful here.
Yeah, Chris is right. I look at my power ratings here. Altitude's a little bit of a factor.
It is an advantage in this game.
That's another 5-point home field advantage.
So you look at that and you're saying why that. Now, it could be that somebody is maybe questionable. We've not gotten word on it yet, but and it may run up tomorrow. It may run up right back to where the game opens. So starting tonight, I don't know. It's a 4:00 start, but certainly bears watching. But even my power ratings had this number higher. So I think we opened a little conservative to begin with, but I don't know. It's a mystery, really.
Yeah, San Jose State came from behind, beat Sacramento State a week ago. It wasn't that. It was a single window game on a Thursday, but still, I'm with you guys. There's got to be someone knows something on injury on the injury front for Air Force that has moved this aggressively. Let's go to Colorado and Nebraska here. We saw this game last year. Nebraska's quarterback play was not good in that game.
Oh, man.
As Colorado won with
too many
ease.
games where Nebraska quarterback play was good.
But now, I don't want to overreact to week one because they beat up on UTEP, who's one of the weaker teams in FBS. Dominic Raiola looked the part. He looked the part in that game for Nebraska. Now comes Colorado, where the Buffs, I thought, were pretty lucky. They actually win that game a week ago. If it wasn't the fact that they had the best player on the field in Hunter, and Shador, they might have lost that game. I think this is a really, really nice opportunity for the Huskers as a 6.5-point favorite to show college football that they have arrived back on the landscape of not being a pushover anymore. And Colorado, I don't know if they're going to be able to block Nebraska's front. That's my biggest holdup in this game. I do like Nebraska at 6.5. Didn't like it at 7, but now that we're south to 7, it would be a strong lean to the Huskers.
Oh, I like Nebraska in this spot. First of all, talking about revenge from last year. This is a game really kind of put Colorado on the map. And I think Matt Rule, listen, there's a lot of stuff happening in Carolina. I'm not sure how much of it was Matt Rule's fault. It might have been a lot of it. I'm not sure. But I think ownership and upper management had a lot of meddling to do that kind of subverted his efforts to put Carolina on the map. Conversely, he's been a hell of a college coach.
He's a great coach.
And maybe one fits and one doesn't. Even Nick Saban didn't do all that well.
Spurrier was one of the worst pro coaches we've ever seen.
Absolutely, yeah. So sometimes it works in one venue, doesn't work in another. And I think Matt Rule is a very, very good college coach. And, knowing the Gaughan family as we do, they're big Nebraska supporters. I've always kind of rooted for Nebraska. And I think this is a good spot for them. I got to tell you, and I let numbers do the talking when I make my handicap. I had Nebraska an 11-point favorite here.
Yeah,
you know, so that's what I think. I think it's a good spot. Did I give? Is this one of the games I gave you?
It was not.
It was not.
No.
Okay, put that on a lean side for me.
Okay.
And also, I don't like to lay too many points early in the year, but I would definitely lean towards Nebraska.
Real quick correction on my end. Of course, Dylan Raiola, who's Dominic Raiola nephew. Of course, Dominic Raiola was a great center for the Detroit Lions. I was on pace a little bit.
Okay.
I think obviously Colorado with the skill positions probably has the advantage here. But when you look at Nebraska's, their size, the way they grind, there is a much better vibe under center this year compared to last year. I mean,
they have a quarterback now.
There were games last year. There were 3 guys playing quarterback in games. So. And it wasn't always
any good,
and it wasn't always because of an injury either. So
when you have 2 quarterbacks, it's not you don't have a quarterback.
I will tell you this. Chris brought up a good point. They like Rule there. They're very high on him. I know some of the families going to the game tomorrow. John, so,
they didn't invite us.
They did. Well, they were working.
Oh, wow.
But I will tell you one thing about Colorado that I'd watch very closely, and whether it's this game or as the season goes on. You mentioned Hunter, Jeff.
Yes.
He played 2 ways.
He only missed 2 snaps the whole game.
2 snaps last week, and I'm not talking about special teams.
Everything.
I'm talking about like 2. I know it's not the NFL in terms of necessarily being the same level of physical play, but that kind of activity is not going to bode well during a long season.
Yeah.
So I'd be a bit cautious there. Not that I'm going to tell Deion Sanders how to coach his team, but I'd watch that very closely, though.
Well, I think God knows I'm no expert, no scout or anything like that. He seems like a better corner than receiver to me.
That's what the NFL guys think as well.
But if I'm him, I'm going to go be a receiver.
I'd rather go
I'm going to go make $45 million a year.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm looking for.
Well, those corners are getting paid now. Jalen
They're getting paid, but not as much.
No, not quite.
Not as much as the CD Lambs of the world.
So I want to go to this one. Oklahoma hosts Houston. This is a monster line. Former Southwest Conference and Big 12 conference foes last year. Same conference, Chris. I had to remind both of us of that earlier today. You guys are market high. That's actually the main reason I want to bring this up. You guys are 28.5. The rest of the market's mostly 27.5. Oklahoma looked good against a really overmatched foe last week. And Houston, oh boy, right away it was clear that the wrong team was favored in that game against UNLV.
Willie Fritz, that's a coach now for Houston. I have a lot of respect for him, but not yet.
Not yet.
We got a couple years to go to get this program up to where they feel they should be, and they probably will be at some point, but not yet. And I think Oklahoma, again, it takes. I'm not crazy about laying points early in the year, but I'm not crazy about taking these big dogs because some of them we just don't know how bad they are. Yeah. But again, my friend Vinny over here talked about first half. That may be the way to go if you're going to bet the chalk in this game. Because, I don't know, they may lay off a little bit in the second half, but I do think Oklahoma's probably the right side. Houston was overmatched by a good UNLV team, but, certainly not on a level of like an Oklahoma.
Rebels played good, but I agree. It's what I was going to say, Chris. If you're looking at this game with the favorite, it's first half.
Real quick, big line in this one. Clemson got drilled last week by Georgia. They're 17 against App State at home. Just from a bookmaking perspective, real quick, guys, when you see a team like Clemson, who, again, not quite the team that they've been, go out and get beat up by the team that's number one in everyone's power ratings at this point, do you move them much based off of that because it's of the opponent, or do you move them because they couldn't do anything against the number one team in everyone's ratings?
I moved them a little, but my numbers came to 17 and
so
a
right
half
on
in this
it.
game. So, I mean, you look back at that game. I mean, they were in it in the first half.
Yeah.
I mean, but just Georgia steamrolled them. And, a couple guys are saying it, and I think it's absolutely true. There are a lot of teams that are going to get steamrolled by Georgia this year. So I lowered them, maybe a shade. But my numbers came to 17 and a half here. And, I think that's a legitimate number against, a decent mid-major in App State, which is probably a bigger game for App State.
A huge game for them.
Yeah, but I'd be awful careful with either side here. I thought the number was right.
Yeah, I think, think about Clemson, just their offense, right? I mean, their defense played pretty well. It just got worn down, and they were on the field for a pretty significant portion of the game. So I'd like to see another week. Let's see what they do, what kind of adjustments they can make. But there's obviously Clemson's things are not the same with Clemson, especially with the advent of the transfer portal and Dabo Swinney's philosophy with it. Without it.
Without it, it's a better way to put it. Let's go to Oregon and Boise. This at Odson, of course. Oregon really struggled against FCS Idaho last week. Less than 3 yards a carry. They need a fourth down touchdown to put the game away. Yeah. Now Boise comes wandering in after putting up 50 plus against Georgia Southern, but they gave up 40 in that game, or in the high 30s, I should say. It's been an interesting betting game from 18.5 to 21. Now coming back down the ladder at 19. It's been mostly over money. Now it's 62 on this game.
Well, Oregon, I don't know. We got to see.
It's weird, right?
Yeah, they, you looked at that box score, and it's kind of confusing, to tell you the truth. It really, I think we need to see how good Oregon's offensive line is, and I think a lot is going to depend on that. They didn't look that good last week. Now they're stepping up a little bit. Did they maybe, take things for granted? I always think of the Chuck Noll statement. He says, you win games on Wednesday and Thursday when you practice, and it just comes to fruition on Sundays. And I'm thinking that maybe with Boise, did they maybe not pay attention like they should have on Wednesday and Thursday, and not practice and not get their offensive line coordinator? Because supposedly that was a big plus for Oregon this year, as they really beefed up that offensive line. I'm not sure we'll get a completely true test against Boise, but they better play better than they did last week.
They could lose the game if they. Whether that Genty, the running back for Boise State, is amazing.
He's legit.
He's amazing.
He's legit.
It's kind of miraculous Boise was able to retain him.
Yeah, I know.
In this era,
right. Surprised he's not with a Big Ten school.
Like Oregon. If he didn't have leg cramps at the end of the game, he would have scored 7 touchdowns for Boise a week ago.
Interesting. So here's Oregon at home again. Right? Yeah, they haven't had to travel. You got Boise went down south
crisscross
to humidity and heat. Now making this trip. I'm sure they went home first and then came. But I would take that into consideration here too. But Oregon looks. I mean, they're gonna press. I think that I'm not surprised that this total has gone up, and I think it's going to continue to go up. This will be a total that's. I don't think there's going to be two-way action on this total. I think it's going to be all one way.
Staying in the Pacific Northwest, Wazoo hosts Texas Tech. Chris, this is a favorite flip. Tech opened -1, got as high to Wazoo -2, and now it's Washington State -1 in this one against Texas Tech up there in the Palouse.
Well, the big injury for Texas Tech, the running back, I think he's questionable last time.
Yes.
What's his name?
Brooks.
Yeah, that kid is really good. He was a big part of their offense, certainly last year. And I kind of liked Wash State anyway. And then hearing that this kid is, maybe not 100% and maybe not even playing, I like the move on Wash State. I think that's the right side. So I was glad some money came back in on Texas Tech. But I think Wash State's the right side in this game. Is that one?
That is one of yours.
That's one of my sides.
That is one of yours. -1 on Wazoo.
Yeah, I like them.
Probably goes back up, especially with Brooks not being 100%.
Arizona State and Mississippi State. We saw this game a year ago. Now back here in Tempe. Arizona State was one of the more impressive teams in week one, just blowing the doors off of Wyoming.
Mm-hmm. They were.
And that game was over fast as well.
And there was serious money for Wyoming in that game. Yeah. And they murdered them.
Yeah, that game was over fast.
Yeah.
That was one of those where I was on Wyoming and I'm like, maybe I'll go back for some more. I'm like, nope, no chance. No chance. 5, Chris, was as high as 6.5 on the Sun Devils. 56.5 to 58.5 on the total.
I still kind of like Mississippi State in this game. I think that we may be overreacting. Maybe Wyoming's terrible. Maybe they got lucky. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't want to take too much from week 1, week 2. But again, I think this number has gotten a little high. I'd like the dog in this one.
SEC school.
Yeah.
Weird travel game for them.
Yeah. Yeah. It is.
Dealing with dry hot instead of humid hot for Mississippi State.
It's a big difference too. Yeah. But again, travel and into a different environment. I think both of these teams surprised people in week 1.
Yeah. Arizona State was my biggest surprise. Period.
That was a domination.
Yeah. No angle on this one. I just want to bring it up because USC got that huge win against LSU on Sunday here in Vegas. Yeah. It's 29 against Utah State, who was unimpressive against Robert Morris in that game on Saturday.
With the best catch of the year.
Yeah, it was. Sure was by that defensive back on the pick. Chris, another one, like huge win for USC. How much did you raise them off of that win against LSU?
Not much.
Not much?
Not much. Because I kind of anticipated that maybe – that was another one of the games, and I gave that one to Alex in her round robin parlay. That maybe we had USC underestimated a little bit, and I think I had made some adjustments on them before the game. Just looking a little deeper into their depth chart and something. I mean, Lincoln Riley. I know it was kind of a cool thing to knock them after last year. They were disappointing, but the guy did have some pretty good success. I mean,
quarterbacks are always good.
Yeah, let's not knock him too much, and I think he's found himself a quarterback this year too. So I did adjust, but maybe not as much as other people because I thought the more I got closer to game time, I thought USC was the right side.
Couple of points on the adjustment and better defense.
That was the biggest thing.
That was the difference, right?
Defense looked like a college defense and actually might have even looked like a reasonable college defense in that game against LSU. Last one, $399 and $400 on your betting numbers for Tennessee and NC State. The numbers are flipped on our screen, but Tennessee is a 9-point favorite in this one with a total of 60.5. This has been a mover, guys. This has been a real mover. Up and down the ladder, as low as 7.5, as high as 10, and a total sitting at 60.5 for this one.
Listen, I talk about home field advantage. There's no home field here.
Game in Charlotte.
The game's in Charlotte. Probably favors NC State a bit. I would tell you this, when you're doing your power ratings, look at the difference between home and road. Tennessee, the last couple of years, has been a monster at home, not so much on the road. I think people's power ratings have taken that Tennessee home field advantage into too much of their power ratings and not allowed for the difference between home and road. I like NC State. I like this game when it was 7.5, to tell you.
Now it's 9, yeah.
Now it's 9. Even we're as high as 10. Yeah. I think that I thought 7.5. I was looking to listen, I'm not out there betting. I'm really not. I have enough problems as it is. But if I were a player, I would definitely be looking to take the 7.5. I made the game 6 myself. And I think NC State looked terrible last week. No question about it. But again, I don't want to take too much from the first couple weeks of the season. I think NC State is still a legit team, and I think they show up in this game. And at 10, I think it's definitely a play on the dog.
That's when it got to 10. That was definitely the take. There's no doubt about it. This will be one of the higher bet games too tomorrow. It's positioned nicely, 4:30,
late night.
Prime time. A nice spot, and going up with Colorado and Nebraska. So that's a nice twin bill. Those are going to be the highlights, I think, at the fourth.
Very, very, very intrigued to see both of these teams off of Tennessee just obliterating an overmatched FCS team. NC State was losing going into the fourth quarter against Western Carolina last week. So
no, they did not look good.
They did not look good, but that is a defense that I know is power rated high by a lot of people. So I'm just curious to see how that defense holds up against that vaunted Tennessee offense. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we get back, we shift gears. Week 1 National Football League, including a mover behind us on a game going in about 2 hours. When we get back here on Sports by the Book Football Frenzy.
We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day. plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south of the border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside.
Welcome back in here at the South Point studio. Sports by the Book, football frenzy here on a Friday. I'm Jeff Parles, Vinny Magliulo, Chris Andrews alongside. Chris, two quick college football notes that you wanted to bring up real quick before we shift gears over to the NFL.
Well, a couple things. There's a big heat wave in the West. If you're looking at the weather, there's 100 and something in L.A. this today, the last couple of days, really. The heat wave stretches all the way up to Oregon. So in Eugene, at game time, which is 7 o'clock, it's going to be 84 degrees. And how that's going to affect these teams, I don't know. But that's something to keep track of. But check the weather. That you got to. Most of these games that we were looking at, Jeff, are Western. Involving Western teams. Are Western teams playing other Western teams. But Boise and Oregon, that's a weird one to me. And I think that if anything, it probably favors Oregon.
I would agree.
Yeah. The other one, I wrote these down. I gave games like this to Alex last week. These are the kind of games, like I said, the guy who used to bet me quite a bit would play games like this. He's done really well. But if I had 6 games I was going to put in a round robin, these would be the 6 I'd play. Pitt, Virginia, Texas Tech, which I actually like the other side, Mississippi State, Army, and Texas San Antonio. All short dogs. Again, you might look at the end of the year and say, how the hell were these teams underdogs? But they put them in money line round robins. Like I said, the guy who used to bet me bet games similar to this and did very well over the course of time.
Texas San Antonio, Texas State, actually a somewhat important game in the non-power conference realm. Texas State, a lot of people think is a sneaky potential playoff bid team. UTSA, same sort of deal. And like you said, Chris, on the road, short dog.
Yeah,
they're worse dogs.
Those things those parlays. It's almost like compound interest.
Basically.
You're like, holy cow, that comes out pretty good.
Let's shift gears to the pros, Chris. Before we get into the games, any futures, anything crazy futures market wise that has hit the shop over the last few months?
Yeah, the one team that has more opinions on it than anybody is the Atlanta Falcons.
Sure. Of course.
Both ways.
Right.
One of my, again, not to mention names, but one of our big players bet me a couple times that Atlanta will not make the playoffs.
Okay.
And I have a lot of money on them in the future book to win the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Win the division, win the conference, make the playoffs. I got two-way action here. Our good friend Dave Damashek. I'd like to listen to his podcast whenever I can. -3 is his podcast, so shout out to you, Mr. Damashek. Anyway, he was on this week, and his pick to be the number 1 seed in the NFC is Atlanta.
All right.
I says, he doesn't think they're the best team, but if you look at the situation, again, and I know another friend of ours that we had on the show earlier this week, from Sports Action, Chad Millman, he thinks Tampa Bay is going to be the worst team in the NFL.
Oh.
So you look at some of those other ones who's in there. So you got Atlanta, who most people think is going to be pretty good. Carolina, probably not so good.
And New Orleans.
Chad doesn't like New Orleans either.
Yeah.
So, to him, that looks like probably a pretty good chance. But like I said, I got a lot of opinions both ways. I don't have a strong opinion either way. I think I'm just moving with the money and seeing what happens. But I can see some of their points, absolutely.
It'll be a very interesting season down there in Atlanta. We'll get to that game, which naturally is one of the more intriguing games to be in week one. And it's not because of Atlanta, because of what's been going on in Pittsburgh this week in the lead up to the game. All right, as we all expected, an NFL game in Sao Paulo, Brazil, on a Friday night. On a streaming service here in the States. Chris, you guys are actually the market low right now on this game. Back to 1.5 on Philadelphia. The total, you're also market high on the total at 50 right now on this game, with Green Bay taking on the Eagles in Brazil. A really big game for week one for potential NFC playoff picture stuff.
Yeah. Jimmy posted the tickets.
Yeah.
50,000 on the over. That's why we're at 50. High at 50, and 100,000 on the dog, which is why we're at 1.5 in the market low there. So I don't have a strong opinion on this game at all. I think my numbers came to 2.5. I'm looking at my sheet. Yeah, my numbers came to 2.5. So I really don't have an opinion, but Jeff, our job is to take bets and move accordingly, and that's really what I did in this one.
Good matchup, really. When you
great game,
right?
Great
good
game.
To start the season, along with last night. I mean, there's some really good primetime matchups here in week one. So we didn't get a Monday night doubleheader to start the season, but we got a Friday night game, so that's okay. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that.
Not bad.
Right?
I moneylined Green Bay, and I did not intend doing this at the beginning of the week. Philadelphia does not feel everything that's come out of their camp. They clearly do not want to be there playing this game in Brazil. And it's been quiet, stone quiet out of Green Bay's camp. And I think these teams are dead even for the most part. It's just a matter of which quarterback's going to play better for the full season to see who ends up being the better team season long. I ended up moneylining Green Bay.
Yeah.
Does that mean that I'm 100% confident of it? No. But you know what? I thought that the way that Philadelphia has acted this week, where it's just been every quote out of there, why are we having to go to Brazil to play this game? And it's week one. That alarms me a little bit.
Okay, well, we'll find out.
We'll find out in 4 hours.
Let me just throw this out there. Now, I have a good friend of mine who's a big Green Bay Packer fan.
Yeah.
He said, did they jump the gun a little bit on Love?
It's possible.
Anointing him as like the future of Patrick Mahomes and that sort of thing.
That's a little crazy.
But that's a lot of talk in that general direction. But I don't know.
They started the season pretty bad last year, but then they had a really good second half.
Yeah.
Playoffs played well. He played himself into the contract. I think the key for the Eagles, whether it's this game, I think for what Bears watching for the Eagles is the coordinators changes.
2 new coordinators, Kellen Moore on the offense, Vic Fangio on the defense.
If Sirianni lets his coordinators, I don't want to say do what they need to do. Do what they need to do, but also put more more credence into what they're saying. I mean, and went out and got Fangio for a reason, right? So, I think it's on him that bears watching. I think they're better personnel wise on paper, right? But again, paper doesn't get you in the playoffs.
The other thing to watch is the center. They lost Jason Kelce, who looks like he's going to be a Hall of Famer in a couple of years, and probably rightfully so. They've had that the tush push, and I'm not sure that's going to work all that well this year. First of all, teams have figured out some ways to defend that. And second, when you lose the best center on one of your key plays that you've utilized over the last couple of years, things are going to be a little different there. So let's see how that works out. And we don't talk about offensive lines, and we really don't talk. Center is really important, a very important position. Losing that's going to mean something.
Because he brings up a key point. We learned some very expensive lessons on over the years. I said we, as bookmakers, learned the expensive lessons of paying attention to offensive line injuries. It's not just the skill position injuries that are impactful, but these O-lines are critical, no question.
Cam Jurgens slides over from guard to center now, the second-round pick out of Nebraska from a few years ago. He's the replacement for Jason Kelce at the center position for Philadelphia. Now we head to Sunday, guys. Let's go to the Battle of Florida Miami and Jacksonville, game in South Florida. Dolphins are now 3. This has been a toggler, Vinny. 3.5 to 3, the 3.5 back to 3. And the total's actually toggled as well. Now back to the original opener of 49. You know, we talk about early season games in Miami, the Dolphins having a big advantage because of the humidity. Guess what? They don't have it in this game because the Jaguars are used to it practicing in Central Florida all summer long, fellas.
You must have been reading my notes. I was just going to say that exact same thing. You know, that really is something you have to watch. And, you know, try to account. You know, I'm stealing a line from Billy Walters. Not a bad guy to steal from, by the way.
Right.
Account for everything. And early in the year, that is a big advantage for Miami. First of all, they make sure that they're on the side of the field that has a shade.
Right,
you know,
of course.
That's number one.
And they're going to be wearing white uniforms.
And they're going to be wearing white. Yeah, so that's going to help. That home field advantage may not come into effect in November and December, and it may not come into effect in this game too. So not a strong opinion on this game. I don't have a strong opinion on any of these games. I'm just going to go ahead and say it right now. So I think you do in this game, and I don't know about Vinny, but I don't have a strong opinion there. I want to watch this one.
This was, Vinny, it's funny. We've actually kind of hit the games I really like right at the top here for the NFL, and there may be a lot of just in-game play for week 1. When it was 3.5, I jumped on Jacksonville.
Sure.
Miami really does have a big advantage in these September games, especially when we saw the Patriots lose down there a ton. They're in the Brady era because of it. There's no advantage with the humidity.
Gets turned around up north.
Exactly, in December.
For the Dolphins.
But Jacksonville's one of those teams that has a lot on the line this year. I know they've just paid Trevor Lawrence, but that coaching staff, if they underachieve again, they're gone.
They might be.
So this is a big game right out of the chute against the potential playoff team. So I took 3.5 with
decision making with Lawrence. You got to cut back on. He's got to cut down significantly on his turnovers. And we know Miami. Here's the thing about the Dolphins. Want to see what their defense does.
No more Fangio.
But who I guess he didn't fit there. They were all excited about getting him, and he seemed to be excited to go back to up to Philadelphia. He's from that area, so maybe that's a better fit. But we know the Dolphins are going to score points, and in a league that really favors offense, and these new rules also help the offense as well. You're not going to be out of games too many games with the Dolphins offense. So, we know they're going to put points on the board.
Miami, one of the teams that is expected in that 3-horse race in the AFC East, very tight in the future book with those 3 teams, the Jets and the Bills, of course, the other ones odds-wise. Be a very interesting start, especially also with Tua Tagovailoa getting paid this offseason as well. So that's not hanging over the heads of Miami going into the year. All right. You mentioned the Falcons earlier, Chris.
Who are they playing?
Playing the Steelers. Frank, where are you? No,
I was going to say, get Frankie on the phone for me.
This has moved to 3.5 on the news that Russell Wilson is now officially questionable with a calf problem right now, calf tightness, the exact diagnosis for Wilson. We know Kirk Cousins comes over on the Atlanta side. We know at least there's a competent backup in Justin Fields behind Russell Wilson. Total 41. Chris, I didn't bet this game, but this does kind of scream Mike Tomlin wins a game as an underdog that his team has no business winning against a team that's a lot more talented than Atlanta, at least coming into the year.
I still think the Steelers have a great defense.
Great
really
pass rush still.
But, you can see with all these wide receivers getting paid this year, they don't have wide receivers. They have one, Pickens, and they have a very good tight end in Freiermuth, who they just signed to a long-term contract. So they have 2 good receivers. Is that enough in this modern NFL? I'm not sure it is. And I there's a lot I don't like about the Steeler offense. I just mentioned a couple of things right there, but do love their defense. I think 3.5, and I went to 3.5 on the news of Russell Wilson. I'm really pretty even bet-wise on the game, but again, I try not to let my own personal feelings interfere with the numbers. I think 3.5 though is probably a take. Probably,
yes.
I wouldn't empty my pockets to go in on this, but I think the defense keeps him in this game. And you're right, Tomlin wins games he's not supposed to. And of course, I look back to last year, lost to Arizona and New England, or else that team is 11-6 or whatever the hell they would have been.
Goes both ways with him.
It does go both ways with Mike Tomlin, and I think 3.5 is probably a take, but I moved there myself, so I mean it's not. I'm not crazy about it.
Yeah, I think the bettors are taking a wait and see approach too, right?
They have to,
in a
right?
game, in a field goal game, you would think it would, the 3.5 would get grabbed right away, but I mean, I think it is a wait and see approach until we know. But listen, I got to tell you, I don't, and I know Tomlin feels that, Wilson does, earn the start. I don't know. Fields gives them a whole different dimension too to that. Maybe that's what the Steeler offense needs. I don't, without a premier running back and without a great receivers, maybe that's the key. So I don't know, but this is definitely a new look Falcons team too. Figure with their addition, they had a good draft. Well, both these teams had a good draft. But
yeah, Vinny, I'm sorry. To your point, let's watch the offensive line for Pittsburgh. Because they had a couple of draft choices, including a center.
Mm-hmm.
And everything I'm reading so far, it reads pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah.
That's, preseason. Let's see what happens with when the real season.
Yeah.
And, but I think that's going to be a big key to this team. We could say that for every team, but I think the offensive line really going to be important to we all know what the flaws of both these quarterbacks for Pittsburgh are, taking too many sacks.
Yep.
Can they protect him, and can they open up some running lanes for what should be a decent running game?
Well, and of course, Atlanta, forget just Kirk Cousins, new head coach, and Raheem Morris.
Yeah.
Zach Robinson's now your play caller. Of course, Arthur Smith goes from Falcon head coach to Steelers offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
So a little bit of a...
I'm not crazy about Raheem Morris either.
You know what? He
was okay.
He works both ways. There's some really ugly stuff Tampa-wise. He also won 10 games in the season with Josh Freeman.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
So there a little give or
that's
take
a good
there
point.
On Raheem Morris. I don't know. We'll see how he is in the second go-around as an NFL head coach. All right, let's go to the Meadowlands. Minnesota and the New York Football Giants. Giants are going to be wearing those ridiculous jerseys out of the 1920s.
Are they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Giants in red, exactly what we expected to see week one. This has been a favorite flip from where you opened in the summer. Minnesota is now 1 point favorite. Giants were 1 at the open, total 41. A whole boatload of questions at the quarterback position. We know Sam Darnold's going to be the quarterback for Minnesota with J.J. McCarthy out for the year with that torn meniscus. On the Giants side, Daniel Jones dealt with a whole cavalcade of injuries before the significant knee injury last year. And now it's basically a put-up or shut-up year for Daniel Jones here after that big contract he got 2 off seasons ago.
Daniel Jones, I think a lot of us were scratching our head when he got drafted.
Right, we were.
We've been making excuses for him, it seems like, ever since then. Sam Darnold, a guy who, Bill Belichick, if he played for Bill Belichick, I think Belichick would have murdered him by now. You got to protect the football. And Sam Darnold, even when he was in college, and I said the same thing on him coming out, he does not protect the football, whether it's fumbles or interceptions. And that's going to lose you a lot of games. So once again, no real opinion here. I guess I kind of agree with the favorite flip, but boy, I wouldn't tap out on either one of these two teams. I think, if Darnold plays to his potential, I think he's a pretty good quarterback. But I could probably say the same thing about Daniel Jones. We just have never seen him do that, with any, real weapons or any real health on his part either.
Everybody plays this week in week one, and, it's always a very high-handle week because these games have been up for months, and everybody's ready for the NFL to return. That said, this may be the lowest handle game. Really, it's going to be certainly one of. Now, I'm not going to knock it. people are going to utilize it.
I got a low handle game for you after this too.
Yeah, I said one of them. Yeah. But the thing about it is, for the Giants, they lose their best offensive player to a division rival.
Yep. Barkley.
To the Eagles. I think here's a red flag if you're a Giants fan. I just saw an article yesterday about potential candidates to be traded by the Giants.
It's always a good sign on September 4th.
At the trade deadline. These are the candidates. I'm thinking, we haven't even played a game yet. I mean, that's not a good sign.
That's not a good sign.
Right? So, both teams, we know the Vikings are in a you could call it a rebuild. The Giants, at least in a retool, may be a rebuild before we know it.
It's interesting on the Giants side. I think their D-line's actually really good. Dexter Lawrence.
Those are some of the names that are being bannered around.
Brian Burns, they trade for in the offseason, give the big deal. I don't know. This was a game I crossed off immediately when I saw the schedule makers put this in week 1 right away. And even more so now, this is a total stay off here for the Giants.
Daboll, I think, is a pretty good
he's
coach.
An excellent coach.
But how about the general manager? And I didn't watch all that Hard Knock stuff, but he was a total, I won't use the word, I could probably use it. He's been a total asshole, dealing with Barkley, total. And I think I'm sure I'm not the only guy who saw that. I'm sure the rest of the guys on the team saw that, and probably Wellington Mara, or which Mara is not Wellington still?
No.
Oh,
he's passed away.
It's John.
So I'm sure the Mara family has seen that, and I think if you're a player out there, you're not going to be anxious to sign with this team with that guy as being the general manager. And I think Daboll is a good coach, and I think if given the right team, the right players, and healthy situation, I think he can win some football games.
Moving along here, you mentioned small, not as big handle games. I'll give you one in Carolina and New Orleans at the Superdome. Saints 4, total 41.5. The big question mark. Again, I don't like either of these teams, but for Bryce Young, who is coming off just by every stretch of the imagination, a dreadful rookie season, especially when you look at C.J. Stroud's rookie year, I don't know if it can bottom out even worse, but now with a head coach in Ken Nallis, who really did great things with Baker Mayfield as his QB, as the OC in Tampa last year, I'm just looking to see what Bryce Young is here in year 2 more so than anything. I know what Derek Carr is. I know what Dennis Allen is. I know New Orleans is probably going to win between 6 and 9 games this year and be either a mediocre playoff team or a team that misses the playoffs and is really not any good. I don't know what Carolina is going to be because of Bryce Young and what he's going to be in year 2.
I think you nailed everything right there. I mean, again, Chad Millman, who we had on earlier this week, talked about the Dennis Allen's record as a head coach against the number is terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Derek Carr's isn't much better. But what do we think about Carolina? The one RAS, what's their
right angle?
Right Angle Sports. That was one of their big plays this year. They bet season win totals over on Carolina. Mostly thinking, how much worse can they be?
Yeah.
It has to be some improvement. Well, I don't think there has to be, but I could kind of understand their philosophy with that. It can't be much worse. And can I pat myself on the back here?
You were all over.
Coming out of college, I said C.J. Stroud is way better than Bryce Young, and of course I was proven right. But I don't like these little quarterbacks, and there's a couple of them that have been good over the years. I mean, Michael Vick, I think, was a pretty good quarterback. He had flashes of not being so good. Drew Brees was a great quarterback, but mostly the bigger guys are the better quarterbacks. And C.J. Stroud was a big, strong kid. And he wasn't just some athlete. He was a real quarterback, and he showed that last year. And I'm not sure Bryce Young, I'm not sure his game fits in the pros.
Canales had a lot more to work with Baker Mayfield and the weapons that he had, plus his experience. This is a game, but interestingly enough, they've taken the dog so far in this game.
Yeah.
But I suspect that there'll be Saints money that does come in. So, conference. I mean, a division game, and but these are the second half of the division teams in terms of power rating and projections, right? When you look at regular season wins and things.
That NFC South, again, probably 9 wins, good enough to win the division yet again, would be my guess.
Yeah. Is that going to make Atlanta number 1 seed? Dave Damashek.
I had Atlanta number 4 in the NFC, the only representative out of that division. All right, let's go to New England and Cincinnati. Patriots and Bengals here. Of course, Jacoby Brissett will start for New England. No Drake May just yet. Joe Burrow is actually healthy going into the year, but for the Bengals, they got some bad news about T. Higgins. He is doubtful for this game.
Is that an injury or a holdout?
No, Jamar Chase, who I'm getting to.
Okay.
Who?
But what about T. Higgins?
His question. Oh, Higgins is hurt.
He's hurt. Okay.
Yeah. No, he's hurt. Chase, who claims he's going to play and is going to be. It's a weird thing. And Chris, Alex and I talked about this earlier in the week with Cincinnati. Joe Burrow era. They are 1-3 outright in his week 1 starts. Their only win was an upset over Minnesota in year 2, the year they made the Super Bowl. 2-2 against the number. But the last 2 years, they lost that ridiculous game to Pittsburgh week 1 where Burrow turned it over 5 times. It was a ridiculous game. Steelers won it overtime. Burrow turned it over 5 times. And then last year, they got their doors blown off in Cleveland in week 1, a 24-3 thumping. I'm just a little concerned about laying this many points this early in the season with a Cincinnati team that has proven not to be fully ready in week 1 in this era with Burrow and Zach Taylor.
Well, I told you I don't have many opinions. I got one in this one.
Go for it.
I like the dog here. And, a couple things. You mentioned a couple receivers, whether it's Higgins and
Chase.
Jamar Chase, yeah.
Jamar Chase. The other thing that kind of struck me, they had 12 rookies and undrafted free agents made the team. Now, I know Mike Brown from being a Steeler fan all these years. There's some cheap owners out there. He is the cheapest. I know kind of from what he's thinking, I got 12 guys on rookie contracts.
Yeah, there you go.
And I'm not sure those are the 12 guys that were the best or most conducive to him winning a Super Bowl, because I think with a full squad, I think that team has a good chance of winning the Super Bowl. They're in tough like everybody in the NFL. But I think with Joe Burrow there and some of the skill position players, I think they have a hell of a chance to win as good as almost anybody. But when I saw those 12 guys make the team, I'm thinking, man, I know what my judgment on Mike Brown is, that this guy's looking to save money wherever he can. And I think this is one of those games. Listen, there's not much I could say good about New England. This is mostly a bet against Cincinnati. But I think, game 1 of this team, I think that they're going to play hard, and I think they definitely keep this within a touchdown.
Biggest favorite on the board.
Yep.
And I think the reason for that is Burrow, and in spite of the receiver injuries, but this is a complete rebuild in New England,
Sure
right?
is.
And nobody's going to feel sorry for him.
Nope, not quite.
So that's but they took the 9, they took the 8.5. So
yeah,
I'm probably taking the 8 right here.
Yeah, I wouldn't. We saw 7.5. I think earlier this week, it maybe even been last week. I wouldn't be shocked if we see that again by the time game time rolls around. I don't think we'll get 7, but 7.5. Yeah, I think
Higgins'
we'll see
injuries. What is it?
He's doubtful.
He's doubtful for what? But
let me get you the exact diagnosis on Higgins, but he is doubtful for this game on Sunday now with a hamstring. The hamstring for Higgins is the report out of Cincinnati. All right, let's go to let's keep it in the Midwest. We'll go to Chicago. Bears hosting the Titans. Caleb Williams makes his NFL debut. Brian Callahan, first game as a head coach for the Tennessee Titans. Chris, people have been steady betting the Tennessee Titans in this game.
There's an interesting stake. I'm sorry.
Yeah, 4.5 down to 3.5 was as high as 5, Chris. Again, rookie quarterback, team that wasn't particularly great last year either, laying more than a field goal at home in this one against Will Levis, who was a total wild man when he played a year ago for the Titans.
Oh, yeah. Here's my cousin sent me this stat. Zach, this is a shout out to you. Since 2005, first overall picks that are quarterbacks and start game 1 of the same year, 0-14-1 straight up and 0-15 against the spread.
You know who the last one to win as the first overall pick? This was
Andrew Luck?
No. We're going back to the expansion Texans and David Carr.
David Carr
Was the last number 1 overall pick to win his opening day start.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Zach, I'm pretty sure, is on the Titans in this game, sending me that stat. But I could see it. Every time, what do we say? This time it's different.
Not so fast.
Be careful. Be careful. I would, gun to my head, I would definitely take the Titans in this game. And, why are they more than a 3-point dog? I think 3 is probably the right number in this game. Now, if we get into the middle of October, then I think we're probably looking at a line similar to what we have now. But I said this, I think I said it on Alex's show earlier this week. People tend to look at this first week almost the way they look at season win totals, as a referendum on the season.
Yeah.
That's not the case.
Nope.
You got to look at each game individually. And this is one, I think, is a prime example. Like I said, probably in October or maybe even earlier than that, we would look at this being the right line. Is it the right line week 1? I don't think so. I think this is a play on the dog.
There's still teams that are really trying to figure things out. I think last night is an example. I think that September is still teams trying to work things out. So many starters did not play in any of the preseason. Coaching staffs have changed. Last night was a clear example. Both coordinators, I think, are different now for the Ravens. The Chiefs, their checkdowns were much better. Their options were much better, and the progressions were quicker. That said, you're going to see that throughout. That's why in these early weeks, points are at a premium, and we're not going to overreact a whole lot. I said this last week. There's going to be more adjustments in this first month, or significant adjustments, I should say, in power ratings for college teams than for pro teams. So, and that's why you look at these numbers. I mean, you don't. There's no double digits. Everything for the majority of these games are within 3 and 4. I mean, that's not a lot of points in the NFL.
You see how many 3s I have on the Ties win card, Vinny?
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
I'm cringing already. Yeah. I haven't even kicked off yet.
Oh, man.
Was hovering.
Let's keep it rolling here. Going to Arizona, going to Western New York. They take on Buffalo. Different looking Bills team, to say the very least. The lowest power rating Bills team basically since 2019. We're talking about going into a year. It's been a while since the Bills have been at least down the board going into the year. Still a potential Super Bowl threat, but not quite those favorites that they've been the last few years going into the year. This was 7. It's now 6.5. Bills laying it at home. Total's gone down 1.5 from 48.5 to 47. There is a potential for a nice little downpour in this game as well.
I thought the number looked okay at 7 myself. 6.5 is not enough to make me lay it, but everybody knows I'm anti-Kyler Murray. Another guy that I think is it's too small. No. And he'll have the best highlight reel in the NFL. I say, you know what a Tom Brady highlight reel looks like? Him lifting the Lombardi trophy. And that's what wins you a lot of NFL games. And like Kyler Murray, great athlete. He cashed in. He got his $50 million a year. But I'm not sure he's going to win a lot of football games. He did make the playoffs one time. Gun to my head, I'd probably play Buffalo, but I'm not crazy about them this year either. What's the linebacker they lost, Vinny?
Milano.
Milano's out with a big injury.
Yeah, I knew it was an Italian guy, so Vinny'd be right on top of that.
I got him.
So
keep track of all my cousins.
Yeah, I think he was a neighbor of yours, wasn't he? Anyway, I think that's really going to hurt Buffalo this year. Is he out for the season, Vinny?
No, he designated to return. They don't expect him until December.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's going to hurt for a long time because he really was a big key in that defense.
Best defender.
But I don't know. I still think the number. I wouldn't play this, but maybe I think 7 was probably a better number.
The game got down to 6, and then they laid it, right? So, look, the difference here is obviously the quarterback. As long as Josh Allen is there, because they're receivers. It's a completely different receiver core for the most part. There's a lot of changes, defensively, offense. But something. What's interesting is, and I think Allen takes a lot of. He takes too many hits.
Yeah,
he takes on too many tacklers, but he's still the best. He's one of the best in the game. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the game, and he's big enough to do that. Like what Lamar Jackson did last night is very dangerous for him. He is not the size of Josh Allen. So
and he's lost weight.
And so now he does a lot of things with his feet, and that's great. But I just don't know if you can't have games like that every week, like last night, and hope to have a successful season or last a season. But as long as Allen is in the game for this team, now I think the Cardinals are a little bit better. We saw them play and win some games last year that you were shocked that they won. Right? They won at Pittsburgh. They won at Baltimore too. So, and I think they're a little bit better, and that's why I think that no real surprise that they took the touchdown here.
The last game in that early window is Indianapolis hosting Houston. We saw this game in Week 18 a year ago. Texans survived, won the AFC South because of it, and I think because of that result, entered this season with a lot more expectations than would have been expected if Indy had held on and won that game. Anthony Richardson returns from injury. Second year for Shane Steichen in Indy. C.J. Stroud, second year in Houston. Chris, you guys are at 2.5. With a total of 48.5. You guys are the only flat 2.5 in the market. All the 2.5s are heavily juiced on the Houston side in this game outside of here.
Well, we've gone to 3 with the game, and the sharp guys took it. So that's another one I'm going to tell you, fits into that, what I said about the Chicago game. I think if you look at this game, like my power ratings came to 5.
Okay.
But if I was betting, I think I would try to take the 3 on the Colts. Because I think, week 1, game 1, I think Houston is a good team, and I like C.J. Stroud a lot. I like DeMeco Ryans, their head coach, but I think right now they might be a little bit overrated. And Anthony Richardson, when he played, he was a lot better than I thought. Yeah. I mean, the kid had only like 1 season at Florida. He played a couple games last year, but I think quarterbacks. I wouldn't say this about any other position on the team, but quarterbacks, I think character means a lot. And everything I read about this kid makes it sound like he's an A1 kid, really doing his studying, participating in the community, all the things that you want to see. And I expect him to have a pretty good game here. And like I said, maybe in a couple of weeks you look at this game and the Texans should be a higher favorite. But this week 1, I would definitely look to take the 3 on the Colts.
I could see it with what Chris is saying. You'll go to the Texans. Good season last year. Good free agent signings. Good draft.
Great offseason, yeah.
Also, upgrade in the schedule. I mean,
exactly.
That's the biggest thing with them. Yep.
And so the Colts are healthy here too. And I think when the Colts are healthy, they're obviously a different team. So, but I could see that's why. When the 3 was there, it was a blink, and I think if it goes back to 3, that'll toggle back and forth between 2.5 and 3.
Of course, Stephon Diggs now a Houston Texan. Yeah. Frank Nicotero still doesn't know that, but he is a Houston Texan now. Vinny, you just brought up a really good point. Even though I think Houston is more than capable of winning double-digit games this year, the biggest holdup is that they go from a last-place schedule to a first-place schedule, and it is a brutal first-place schedule at that. Going into this year in an AFC South that seems to not suck as much as it did in the past.
Nobody's overlooking them either. I know Pittsburgh went in there last year, and I thought, Pittsburgh will kill this team.
Pittsburgh got destroyed. Got destroyed.
They got trounced in that, and that was one of the first ones. I thought 2 things. Oh, man, Pittsburgh's maybe not that good, and Houston is pretty darn good.
Yeah. Going to the late slate, we'll start with the Raiders and the Chargers in L.A. There'll be mostly Raider fans in this game. Chris, you guys are sitting at the flat 3 right now. Chargers laying it. Yours as high as 4. Total's really been the bigger mover here from 43.5 to 40.5 on this one.
I don't know, boy. This is another tough one for me.
Jim Harbaugh's first game as Charger head coach.
I really like Harbaugh as a coach. He's a weird guy, but I like him as a coach. But somebody pointed out to me, and I don't know if this is true, but we'll have, ask me in 6 months, I'll give you a better answer. Did he leave pro football and go to the college because the pro game was passing him by a little bit? I'm not sure that's true or not. I don't know.
Honestly, I thought it was more that the people in the San Francisco front office had enough of him.
Yeah.
I would agree with you.
His personality, and Michigan was like, hey, we'll take you.
Sure.
And it was a natural fit.
Before I read that, I would agree with you 100%. Now I only agree with you 75%. Okay. I think, the guy, God, I wish I could remember who wrote that article. He had some points that he explained. And it was really kind of a good explanation. I mean, we know Jim is kind of even though he's a quarterback and a quarterback coach and a quarterback whisperer in some ways, he's really kind of a conservative coach. And is that going to fit in the modern NFL? Again, this guy's point was it wasn't. I'm not so sure. And, Herbert, I guess he's
healthy again now.
Sounds like he's healthy. Yeah, it sounds like he's healthy. And I think if all those are positives for the Chargers, then I think they have a real chance of making the playoffs and making some noise in the playoffs.
Interesting. You mentioned that the fans are going to be there, but when the Raiders come home, we know that
that's the opposite way.
Here it's the secondary market takes over for the visitors. But this said, look, the advantage here for the Chargers is under center. Even though the skill positions are all gone, the receivers, Eckler's gone too. In
Allen in Chicago,
Washington.
Williams in New York, Eckler in Washington.
So, Raiders defense, I think pretty sound and figures to be. But the big question mark for the Raiders is it going to be the quarterback play? And we'll see. We'll get a first look tomorrow.
Despite Devontae Adams still being an elite wide receiver, I think the Raider offense is going to be a disaster. Their defense looks good on paper, but I don't know. I don't know if hiring Antonio Pierce is just the fact that Mark Davis didn't do it with Bisaccia, ended up horrible with Josh McDaniels. Now he does it with Pierce when they really only, other than the Kansas City game, which was more to do with Kansas City than anything, they didn't really beat anyone other than the Chiefs down the stretch.
I agree with you there. Yeah. Those mid-season coaching changes, then you kind of feel strapped into you have to rehire that guy. The players love Antonio Pierce. That's great.
They do.
Is he a good head coach?
We don't know.
I guess, again, ask me 6 months from now. I'll give you a better answer.
It's his team now.
Yeah, sure is. Even though, again, Antonio Pierce and Kevin O'Connell still responsible for that indoor 3-0 game last year, which is still one of the funniest results in NFL history.
Yeah.
Going to Tampa and Washington next, Baker Mayfield and company coming off yet another division title, an unexpected one of that a year ago. They do lose Canales, their offensive coordinator, to Carolina. Total new look in Washington. New head coach in Dan Quinn, new quarterback in Jaden Daniels. And under the radar, pretty good offseason, all things considered, for Washington as well. This opened 4, got as low as 3, now back to 3.5 on this one. 42.5 on the total. Bucks, of course, favored at home.
I guess I like the Bucks a little in this game, but there's just so many question marks on Washington. And I've always felt Baker Mayfield, I think he's been slammed too much.
Maligned for not as much reason.
Your journalism degree is showing. There you go.
Every once in a while.
Very good. But I think that he's, I think he's a pretty decent quarterback. But man, we just said every game seems to come down to the fourth quarter. Are we going to cover 3.5? I don't know. 3, I would say, is a play on the favorite. 3.5 would make you think. 4 is probably a play on the dog. But I kind of lean towards Tampa here.
Warrior, Mayfield, let's face it, where he's done whatever he's been asked to do, and he just goes about it as a true professional. So, this one may be this may kick back up just because of recent history. But I think Washington is going to be better this year. I think they're improving. Tampa, starting to age a little bit too, though, right? When you look at the roster.
Yeah, I thought that was going to get him last year. The aging roster didn't last year. It may get him this year, but again, that division after Atlanta, even Atlanta has so many questions going into the year. Another rookie quarterback in Denver goes on the road to Seattle. Bo Nix, NFL debut against the Seahawks with a new head coach. Mike McDonald comes over, now the head coach. Pete Carroll era over. Still kind of surprised that happened, even though
I am too.
It probably was time for Pete to step aside. This is 6 with a total of 41.5. Chris, I'm a little bit perplexed. Not this individual game because Seattle's gotten bad, but there are a lot of people who seem to like Denver a lot more than I would have expected with the way that roster looks and the fact that it's a rookie quarterback starting right from the get-go here with the Broncos.
See, I'm almost taking an opposite approach on this one. I talked about the off season and the influence. I think that Yeah, like my power ratings came to 5 on this game, which is pretty much what it opened. But I kind of like Seattle here. I mean, I just have I have a lot of question marks on this Denver team. And, I like Bo Nix. I thought it was okay. I'm not, Peyton, I haven't seen him, Coach Peyton, I haven't seen him do really anything with this team. And I'm not sure what they have. And, maybe in October. So I'll go back. I'll say, my number was the right number. But I think in this situation, I kind of like Seattle. Geno Smith is probably better than we've given him credit for.
I agree.
And he's really kind of come home into this offense and into this team. I kind of like Seattle a little bit in this game.
He's got the weapons, Geno, right? Let's face it, particularly
Metcalf,
on the
Smith
outside.
and Jigba still there. 2 good running backs.
The Broncos, I think, there's a lot of hype because of, Sean Payton getting his guy, molding this team and things. I think the molding's got to continue from last year to this year. So I'm not surprised that this number's gone up. There'll be some carryover because it's an afternoon game. And certainly I think it'll continue to go up.
Going to Cleveland next, the Browns and the Cowboys, the premium afternoon game here. Chris, I'm going to be honest with you. I know it's been a tumultuous offseason in Dallas, but I'm a little bit surprised at how this line has moved through the summer. I thought when you guys opened one Dallas, I thought that was right. And it's moved 3.5 points where Cleveland's a 2.5 point favorite in this game with a total of 41. I'm kind of stunned at how this thing has moved all summer.
Jeff, I got to tell you, every wise guy I've talked to that has an opinion on this game is on Cleveland.
Okay.
I'm with you, though. I thought Dallas, and I know they've had problems in Dallas, but do you remember Deshaun Watson is the quarterback for Cleveland? I don't know. I mean, the Deshaun Watson of 3-4 years ago, I thought was one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Not so much since then. And I don't know why this game has been Steven. But like I said, every wise guy that I've talked to has an opinion on Cleveland. I'm going to go in here needing Dallas. And, listen, personally, I can't stand either one of these teams. I know. Long-time Steeler fan. But I'll take whatever they give me, and it looks like they're going to give me Dallas, and I guess I'll take it.
Well, what a rare thing. Week 1 and the book needs Dallas. That when does that happen?
Yeah, write that down. Write that down. If it touches 3, there'll be an absolute grab. Trust me.
And Dallas plus 120 money line seems pretty good. Look, Cleveland is more than capable of winning this game, but wow, like you said, Chris, Sharpies all over this one.
They are, yeah.
With the Browns up to 2.5 point favorites against Dallas. All right, the 2 primetime games left on the board. Sunday night, the Rams go to Detroit, playoff rematch from a year ago. You guys are actually market low on this game on the Lions at 4. A lot of 4.5 in the market right now with a total of 52, the highest total. Boys, the NFL changed over the last 5 years where there are a lot of games in the low 50s. Now it's just 1 here for week 1.
Got a lot of sharp play on the Rams.
On the Rams.
For not only in this game, but for season win totals,
division.
For the division, for the Super Bowl. A lot of sharp play that I respect on the Rams. I don't have an opinion in this game. I think this is going to be a really good game. But I will tell you this, gun to my head, I would pick Detroit to win the NFC.
Okay.
I think they're the best team in the NFC. I've got a long way to go, obviously, and I wouldn't bet a future at this point because their numbers are not really conducive. I think you're probably better off waiting for some sort of opportunity in the playoffs themselves. But I think they're the best team in the NFC. I really do, and I don't know if they win this game and cover this game. I'm not saying that at all. I think it's gonna be a really tough game, but I'm going to go on record. I think Detroit's probably the best team in the NFC.
Detroit lose their kicker to an injury early in the year, right? Torn hamstring, so they have a new kicker this year.
UFL hero Jake Bates is now their kicker.
And it was a 60-yard machine, right?
Yep.
I think the Rams. Chris is right about the offseason play for them in several categories. But I think the key is going to be for them the defense, right? Aaron Donald gone, right? So he helped that defense in more ways than one last year because he always got double and triple teamed. They made everybody else better. They also lose their best. They traded the other strong defender because he wasn't pleased. They drafted two rookies out of Florida State.
Jared Verse, their first round pick in almost a decade.
So now nobody's done better in the 4th, 5th, and 6th round, in my opinion, in drafting than the Rams.
Well, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, pretty good players.
Terrific job. And I think that McVay's a good coach. Both of these coaches are good. I mean, Dan Campbell, they love him up there. So I just think that the Rams have some things to sort out on defense in particular, and we know the Lions can score points.
I'm staying out of this individual game unless if we get some really severe movement here and the number gets out of control.
Or in-game, right?
Yeah, in-game. You both made points I agree with. Chris, I'm with you. I think the Lions are the best team in the NFC going into the year. It's just a question of do we get Jared Goff regression at any point? That's the big question mark, at least for Detroit. Will that regression hit on Goff at some point like we saw in L.A.? And for the Rams, you're replacing the best defensive player of this era in Aaron Donald. It is going to take time for the Rams, even though I think they're a bona fide playoff team. And with Stafford healthy, they've proved that in the 2 years he's been healthy there. But replacing Aaron Donald is going to be really difficult for that team. All right, last game, Monday night, Chris. The Jets and the Niners. Aaron Rodgers returns after the Achilles rupture in game 1 last year. The Niners, they reach a deal at Ayuk. They reach a deal with Trent Williams.
That's big.
Both, I think the Williams one is probably bigger than Ayuk with the left tackle position. This has been a big mover through the summer. Opened 6, now 4, and the total's been hit as well this week. Actually up a half point from earlier in the week. 43.5 on this game. Niners 4 on Monday night against the Jets.
Again, I'm going to quote Billy Walters' book. He talked about it. And every year we think, well, this year's going to be different. The Super Bowl loser does not play well, certainly in week 1, and oftentimes throughout the whole season. Now, again, you want to look at this team and say this year's different because you just mentioned some high-powered players, and they're still on a rookie quarterback deal with Purdy, which enabled them to build that roster, rather strongly, really, considering how many big-name players they have. Again, I always hate to say this time it's different because it's usually not. And I think that, probably at the original number, which my 6. Power ratings only came to 3 on this game.
Okay, then.
So I kind of like the dog regardless, but you add in all those other factors. And, I mean, is Williams ready to play? Probably for a tackle, they are. Is Ayuk ready? Probably. But, he hasn't had a chance to really work out all offseason with Purdy. You still have Christian McCaffrey and a lot of strength on this team. There really, really is good and great coaching and a great front office. But I think the number is still a little bit high. And I think, let's not forget last year going into the year, we thought the Jets with Aaron Rodgers would be one of the premier teams in the league. Of course, Rodgers goes out 4 plays into the year and everything goes on tilt, but I think that I think they are going to be a legitimate contender once again. And I do kind of like them in this first game.
McCaffrey's a little sore, right? He's got a couple of tweaks.
He's technically questionable, but he is going to play
all the time.
Exactly.
He'll be there, so they're intact.
Yeah.
So it's going to come down to Rodgers at the end of the day, right? I mean, the Jets have some injuries. They have some question marks on the defensive side of the ball, which, again, check injury reports. Coaching advantage, in my opinion, goes to San Francisco.
Definitely.
And that is beyond the head coach. I think from a coordinator. So Rodgers is the offensive coordinator. Let's face it. Yeah. I mean, Peyton Manning was, and Rodgers is. So, but look, it's all right before him. It's a matter. This is a play on the number, right? This is not so much a play on the Jets as it was on the number. Now, everything is going to be going to this. It started last night. We talked about it. Last night was the fuse. You got tonight's game, and you got everything on Sunday. So that's going to impact how this number moves. And I think at one point, Chris, it was down to 3.5. I think.
It was. Yeah. It was. Yeah.
So, is there a run on the Niners at some point? Probably, and I think multi wager tickets are going to impact that.
Just throwing this one quick thing out there with the Jets. If you took away the team name and just looked at the roster, they're a top 5 roster in the NFL.
Strong.
I don't think there's much argument on that. The big question mark, and you just mentioned it, there's a big coaching advantage in this game to San Francisco. Mm-hmm. Even though the Jets' defensive staff is really good, Hackett is the worst offensive coach in football, which means Aaron Rodgers is going to have to be the coach on the field as he was in Green Bay.
I don't think Aaron minds that.
I tend to agree with you on that.
They went and got Hackett because of Rodgers.
Well, yes, that's the only reason he's there.
Okay.
Yeah. But the one question with the Jets last year was the offensive line. They have shored that up. That offensive line on paper looks quite good going into the year. I would lean to the Jets. I don't love the fact that I missed the best of the number, but still would lean to them. And Chris, you mentioned it. Those teams that lose the Super Bowl, Cincinnati 2 years ago was a big-time anomaly because even though they were bad early, they were one shove away from being in overtime in the AFC title game. It's usually not particularly good.
Look at Philly last year.
Look,
we had Philly penciled in. I thought they were the strongest team in the NFC by far.
Total melt in the second.
Yeah. Maybe it doesn't come to fruition game one, but over the course of the season, I said, every time you look at it, you say, well, I think this year's different. It's usually not.
And for these Niners, real quick, before we get out of here for today, Niners, of course, lose the Super Bowl to Kansas City, the 2019 season. They went 6-10 in 2020. Now, granted, their whole team got hurt that year, but it's still they had this post-Super Bowl hangover.
We all know in football, you're going to win, you're going to get lucky.
Yeah,
that's just the way the NFL is.
Got to stay healthy. That's part
even
of the luck,
I got Scott Kazmar. Do you know who he is?
Of course,
we follow each other on Twitter. Pretty sharp guy. He calls Tom Brady the LOAT, the luckiest of all time. He has a lot of points, I got to tell you.
Pretty good.
Well, that's what we got for you here on a Football Frenzy.
Can I give you my 5 sides?
Absolutely,
Here's
Chris.
Please, because had a good week last week.
4-1 for Chris.
Troy plus 19.5, Michigan plus 7, Wash State -1, NC State plus 10. And that powerhouse, Louisiana Monroe, plus 11.5. Missed kind of the good numbers, but I still think it's the right side.
Those are the 5 for Chris. Chris 4-1 a week ago, looking to keep it rolling.
4 dogs, 1 favorite, 1 small favorite.
See how it plays out. Vinny, Chris, thank you as always. We'll see you again next Friday. Vinny, we'll probably see you tomorrow morning also. Let's be real. At some point. We're on the air tomorrow. Alex
Thanks
White
for
and
the
I.
warning.
Alex White and I are on tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. getting you ready for the day in college football. We'll see you again then. This has been Sports by the Book, Football Frenzy on a Friday.